subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Got up. Umbu assessment missions are usually in groups of 2. Coincidentally, this time you and Yamanaka K can act together. Go! A moment later, Sarutobi Ryo, who had received the Umbu assessment mission, and Yamanaka K walked out of the dark Umbu office together. The two immediately set off and rushed to the eastern coast of a land of fire. Many common-sense things on the surface do not apply to Umbu. The new world is beckoning to me. No, Sarutobi Ryo, who was used to the coldness of human relationships in his previous life, didn't think that a real new world was waiting for him. The light and darkness of human nature are adaptable in any world. It will take 2 days to reach the destination. We have 2 chances to rest. The scroll given by Orochimaru in his arms made Sarutobi Ryo eager to try. Take advantage of the rest time to practice this taijutsu, improve strength, and increase the success rate of the assessment mission. Who will be the mastermind? Yamanaka K murmured. Within the land of fire, in addition to the violent ninja group Konoha Village, there is also an independent ninja squad that is loyal to the Fire Daimyo. Hopefully it's not those guys. Sarutobi Ryo shook his head and quickened his pace. Chapter 21. New power, powerful taijutsu under the bright, starry sky. A faint bonfire swayed gently. Sarutobi Ryo raised his head and stared at the stars, lost in thought. 10 hours had passed since he left the village. Even a ninja needs to rest after running for such a long time. Since coming to this world, Sarutobi Ryo has been struggling between life and death all the way, and only in such gaps can he have a moment to observe the starry sky. Tonight's moon is as big as a disk. The palm-sized bright moon has a sense of emptiness. The moon in this world is completely different from the previous life. The moon in the previous life was 300,000 kilometers away from the Earth. Judging from the size of the moon in this world, I'm afraid it's only 100,000 kilometers or even closer. Shaking his head, he dispelled the momentary inner hesitation. Regaining his composure, Sarutobi Ryo walked aside and pulled open his stance, recalling the taijutsu recorded in the scroll given by Orochimaru. According to the official guidebook Book of Fight, if this taijutsu is practiced to the extreme, even Choji, whose body becomes as huge as a mountain, can be blown away. This is a taijutsu that uses amazing physical strength to unleash overwhelming violence, like an angry Rakshasa. The body tempered through thousands of trials is a weapon to defeat and crush the enemy. Of course, this taijutsu not only has brute force, but also has various and ever-changing techniques. According to the different destructive power and the different situations, the taijutsu is divided into 6 forms. Their names are Rising Knee, Thrust Shoulder, Crashing Palm, Rising Strike Palm, Pressing Palm, Rock Strike. If you cooperate with Jirobo's Cursed Seal State 2, or the Sarutobi clan's natural divine power, you can exert a sure kill effect. Exhaling a breath of turbid air, Sarutobi Ryo, who had finished recalling, began to practice the taijutsu. With his clever mind and unforgettable ability, Sarutobi Ryo's eyes showed pictures of all the movements. Crashing Palm, with his 5 fingers formed into claws, he slapped forward fiercely. Only a bang was heard in the air, and the vibration appeared. This move can be used at 0 distance, and can also strike out force from a distance. Although the distance is not as good as the Hyuga clan's 8 trigrams empty palm, and the attack is not as fast as the empty palm, but the advantage is that it is very violent. In the original work, Jirobo used this move to block Choji's needle human bullet tank without injury. Pressing Palm, Sarutobi Ryo lowered his body, changed his right palm, and pressed down suddenly. A roar exploded, the ground instantly cracked, spider web-like cracks spread out, and finally collapsed suddenly. This move can be used to finish off and kill, or to slam the enemy hard on the ground. Rising Knee. Sarutobi Ryo suddenly raised his knee and the air word. This move is similar to the knee strike in Muay Thai. It can fully exert the power of the human lower body, gathering all the lower body strength at one point, and is a very powerful killing technique. Rising strike palm. The body rotates slightly, the arm strikes upward over the head. This move is like the rising dragon in a fighting game. Using the rotational force of the body, the whole body is integrated and thrown away from the surrounding restraints. The so-called world martial arts come from the rising dragon. And if you are unsure, just use the rising dragon. This is not only an anti-air technique, but also a universal trick to break through one's own predicament. Thrust shoulder. Sarutobi Ryo's body and arms are close to his side. His shoulders exert force, similar to the Iron Mountain Lean in ancient martial arts. Jirobo relied on this move to knock Choji away in one fell swoop. It is also similar to a famous action in the previous life. Because the move is gorgeous and powerful, it is nicknamed GNI is too beautiful. Rock strike. As Sarutobi Ryo's bones all over his body burst out with a crackling sound. The last move of this taijutsu, and also the only move that can connect all the previous moves and exercise every part of the body, is used. This move can mobilize the power of muscles and chakra all over the body to make an incredible blow. In principle, it is similar to Tsunade's super strength, but this move is different from super strength's method of only mobilizing chakra. It also mobilizes the body at the same time and belongs to a hybrid move. The most powerful blow was unleashed. The air boomed, as if a thunderbolt exploded on the plane at night. The unmatched power, just an empty swing, with a super orthodox punch that returns to its original nature, emitted unimaginable power. Is this the taijutsu that Lord Orochimaru gave to the young master? Yamanaka Kei sat by the bonfire, curiously looking at her young master's practice. The strength of this move in front of her exceeded all the taijutsu in her knowledge. Only the sound of explosions can be heard in the air from time to time. Yamanaka Kei looked at her young master, who was sweating profusely and practicing tirelessly, and a heartfelt admiration arose in her heart. Her excellent perception allows her to clearly feel Sarutobi Ryo's body, like a fully burning furnace, emitting endless chakra heat and growing vigorously in this process. The qualifications of a jonin, coupled with the bloodline of the Sarutobi clan, allows Sarutobi Ryo to continue practicing for a long time. There will be no situation like when he was a ninja school student or a genin, where he would be exhausted after practicing for a while. Unprecedented secret taijutsu brings unprecedented growth. Sarutobi Ryo can feel that his chakra is increasing, and every muscle in his body is constantly being strengthened. An hour later, Yamanaka Kei was a little sleepy. 2 hours later, Yamanaka Kei reminded her young master that it was time to rest. But Sarutobi Ryo turned a deaf ear and was completely immersed in the world of practice. Under the night vision ability of his right eye, the radiation intensity of his own chakra is rapidly increasing. This kind of visible growth makes Sarutobi Ryo deeply fascinated. 3 hours later, Sarutobi Ryo roughly mastered this taijutsu, and every movement was incomparably standard, as if he had practiced it tens of thousands of times. 4 hours later, boom, a thunder-like sound exploded on the plane at night. That was the sound caused by Sarutobi Ryo swinging his fist in the air. Boom, boom, boom. Another series of sounds. Sarutobi Ryo took a step, and the ground vibrated just by stepping. The rocks that had been exposed under his feet collapsed and burst. After a cloud of dust flew up, Yamanaka Kei coughed from the choking, and she hurriedly shouted, "Stop, young master. Put away your supernatural powers." Ooh. 19. Section 19. The explosion stopped. A puff of white air escaped from Sarutobi Ryo's mouth. As the smoke and dust dissipated, Sarutobi Ryo's tired, yet spirited eyes were revealed. Amazing! Sarutobi Ryo offered a heartfelt praise for this taijutsu. Merely grasping the basics allowed his own strength to leap to a new level. This was the power of a technique. If he continued to practice, whether it be the power or his own physical abilities and strength, all would continue to improve at an exaggerated pace. Let's stop here for today. Sarutobi Ryo walked to a nearby stream and took a bath directly. Watching his young master heading into the night, Yamanaka Satoshi laid back down, returning to his field bedding. Now young master has become even more powerful. The assessment mission is secure. Chapter 22. Down Z. The young pharmacist, Yakushi Nono Sunrise and Sunset. When dawn arrived once again, Sarutobi Ryo and Yamanaka Satoshi arrived at the eastern coastline of the Land of Fire. Returning to this familiar place, last time during the Whirlpool Country mission, he didn't have the chance to properly see it. Looking at the girl facing the sea breeze, Sarutobi Ryo's cold expression couldn't help but soften slightly. In his previous life, Sarutobi Ryo came from the bottom of society and was used to seeing the dark side. In this life, his identity changed, and he prospered from birth. But the path of a ninja was still full of bloodshed and darkness. Along the way, he trained like a robot, became stronger, killed people, then trained again, became stronger, killed people, repeating this cycle. 2 lifetimes as a person, the essence of life didn't seem to have changed much. Sometimes, Sarutobi Ryo was quite envious of his childhood friend's carefree and optimistic demeanor, and with her by his side, his cold heart would feel a little warmth. The waves continued to crash, smelling the sea breeze, listening to the sound of the sea. As the sun rose, a girl dressed as a commoner walked from the other side of the beach. She looked about 10 years old, with fair skin and a beautiful face. Her light golden hair, with curled ends, hung down. Regarding her figure, Sarutobi Ryo couldn't help but take a few more glances. Ordinary people's clothes couldn't hide that. Down Z. Figure. That's right, it's down Z. Sarutobi Ryo had always thought that this kind of figure could only be seen in manga and games, but he never thought that there would be such people in the real world. The sun rose over the sea, the glow of dawn stretching for miles. The sea breeze blew, blowing open her face covering, revealing her compassionate eyes. The sanctity of her face, mixed with her down Z figure, created a kind of unique charm. Sarutobi Ryo stared fixedly at the person who came. It wasn't until this girl walked up to him that Sarutobi Ryo slowly opened his mouth. The walking shrine maiden, Yakushi Nono. Young Master Ryo. Yakushi Nono nodded slightly, greeting him. Perhaps everyone in Konoha knew Sarutobi Ryo, but those who knew the alias, the Walking Shrine Maiden, were very few, because this title was a title obtained in the Dark World underground. It was not known by the ninjas of the surface world. Nono was a little surprised, and then thought perhaps Lord Danzo had personally told this young master in front of her. Yakushi Nono was sizing up Sarutobi Ryo. Sarutobi Ryo was naturally observing her as well. For some reason, this famous Naruto character in front of him seemed to have a very cold attitude towards him, even a little hostile. Of course, as Konoha's number 1007 spy female ninja, Nono was very good at hiding her own thoughts. This coldness flashed by and then turned into the usual attitude towards people that could be seen everywhere. Sarutobi Ryo, who had an excellent memory, couldn't find any memory of offending her. I'm the contact person for this assessment mission. I have already read Lord Danzo's decree regarding the specific situation. Yakushi Nono adjusted her round glasses. These glasses added a touch of intellectuality to her. The Root ninjas had a unique method of communication. Even if they were thousands of miles apart, they had a way to transmit information to each other in a short period of time. Sarutobi Ryo nodded. Please tell me about the specific target of the assessment mission. Don't rush. Nono turned around, signaling Sarutobi Ryo to follow. Behind her, Yamanaka Satoshi hurriedly ran over to pick up the shoes. According to my observation, it is most suitable to take action at night for this assessment mission. This female ninja, who had made great contributions to Konoha during the war, was now able to return home due to post-war cleanup missions. The mission target belongs to a gangster organization entrenched in the local port. Gangster organizations also known as Yakuza organizations. Similar to Japan in reality, most of the gangsters in this world are composed of samurai, ronin, and rogue ninjas. Back in the Warring States period, ninjas drove the samurai off the stage of history. Some samurai went to the Land of Iron, establishing a neutral country. Another part of the samurai chose to work as bodyguards, guards, or form gangster organizations for a living. Even the ninjas of the 5 great nations cannot be involved in all aspects of the country. Therefore, tacitly allowing the existence of these samurai and ronin has become a rule that everyone abides by. Look there. Entering the edge of the town, Yakushi Nono came to the top of an abandoned building and pointed to the distance. Ninjas generally have very good eyesight. In the original work, during the Chunin exams, Akai and Kakashi could clearly see Orochimaru in the 4 violet flames formation from hundreds of meters away. As for Sarutobi Ryo, because of the existence of the system, farsightedness was even less of a problem. As the pupil of his right eye contracted and dilated, the distant scene immediately zoomed in, allowing him to observe the target with a higher magnification vision. On the pier, a group of workers were transporting goods back and forth. A small number of samurai and ronin were distinguished from them. These samurai maintained law and order, and their uniform attire showed the fact of the gangster organization. Young master, they're all ordinary people. Yamanaka Satoshi, who had caught up at some point, sensed the distance and found that they were indeed all ordinary people. Even the samurai were just slightly stronger physically, with slightly stronger chakra, far from reaching the level of the samurai of the Land of Iron. You must know that the samurai of the Land of Iron can compete with ninjas. Who is their mastermind? Sarutobi Ryo turned his head and looked at the spy female ninja with the down Z figure. Nono was silent. She didn't know whether this young master had guessed it himself or if Lord Danzo had told him. The Guardian Ninja 12, the people beside the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Oh, Sarutobi Ryo raised his eyebrows. Just when Yakushi Nono thought that this second-generation Hokage's son would choose to consider the matter carefully, or even contact the Hokage, the words that Sarutobi Ryo blurted out stunned her on the spot. Then kill these gang leaders one by one first, to lure out the mastermind behind the scenes. What? Is there a problem? Sarutobi Ryo's directness caused Nono's expression to change slightly. No problem. Let's follow your arrangements, young Master Sarutobi Ryo. Nono nodded. If you want to take action, I still suggest doing it at night, so as not to scare ordinary people. Okay. Next, I'm going to scout the area. After Sarutobi Ryo finished speaking, he directly took Yamanaka Satoshi and left. Staring at the backs of the two leaving, Nono adjusted her glasses and became slightly curious about this young master. Perhaps the descriptions in the intelligence are not entirely accurate. Chapter 23. Black Reaper, Sarutobi Ryo. The pier at night was calm and tranquil. The people who had been busy all day after dinner extinguished their lights one after another. The entire port town slowly sank into darkness. Not long after, the peaceful road was disturbed by a burst of noise that came from far and near. A local gang leader, after feasting and drinking, was taking a few of his subordinates back to their stronghold. However, they soon stopped in their tracks, because, under the dim street lamp in front, a figure stood there, all black, wearing a white mask. Soon, the other party stepped towards them, the speed getting faster and faster. Who? The vigilance of those who had been in the lower ranks for many years made several gang members tense up immediately. When the gang leader asked this question, Sarutobi Ryo had already arrived in front of him. Sarutobi Ryo, who was covered from head to toe, only revealed his hair and ears. His face was completely covered in a white mask. 20. Section 20. The mask's expression seemed to be smiling, giving off a chilling feeling. At this moment, Sarutobi Ryo was only 3 meters away from the target. The overly short distance gave the opponent no time to react. Icy killing intent poured out, directly freezing the blood of the several gangsters present. Killing intent. In the previous life, it might have been a kind of metaphysics, but in the world of Naruto, it was a real thing. For example, Zabuza released killing intent, causing the young Team 7 to tremble. Another example was Orochimaru releasing killing intent, causing Kakashi to see the illusion of his own head being blown off. The essence of killing intent is the release of spiritual energy, and spiritual energy is one of the elements that form chakra. The stronger the ninja, the more people they have killed, the stronger their spiritual energy, and the stronger their killing intent will naturally be. Sarutobi Ryo's promotion to Jonin was not based on his identity as the second Hokage's relative, but on his own hard work, built from mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Therefore, his killing intent was so substantial. Crushing palm. Sarutobi Ryo raised his hand, without any unnecessary words. Bang! In his raised palm, transparent shockwaves began to ripple. But this scene was not as simple as Choji blocking Jirobo's human bullet tank in the original story. When the powerful shockwave swept across the scene as the force transmitted, for the gangsters, the power was too fast to see, leaving their leader no time to react, only a cracking sound from his neck, and his entire head was knocked off. The surrounding people stood there dumbfounded. There was shock, disbelief, but none of that mattered. Facing Sarutobi Ryo, whose strength had reached Jonin level, their bodies were as fragile as paper. The difference between a Jonin and an ordinary thug was like the difference between clouds and mud. Soon, screams rang out, and the sound of bones breaking echoed in the night streets. Soon after, the corpses here were discovered. That night, the gangsters began to move, searching the surrounding area and questioning residents, trying to find the murderer. However, this was just the beginning. In the following days, the situation developed beyond the gang's expectations. Several bosses were attacked in different ways. Some had their hearts exploded, some had their heads exploded. Their only common point was that they were killed in one move. From the initial small-scale search to the entire port town being in chaos. With the successive deaths of several gang leaders, panic began to spread. And according to eyewitnesses, the perpetrator was a guy wearing a white mask and dressed in black. After committing multiple crimes in a row, the criminal got a nickname. People called him the Black Reaper. The Black Reaper, they're really good at giving nicknames. Yamanaka K was obviously very enthusiastic about this killing game, thinking about different ways to torture these gangsters every day and offering Sarutobi Ryo various assassination suggestions. Sarutobi Ryo frowned, thinking that this nickname was too ordinary. "It's good, young master." Yamanaka K grabbed Sarutobi Ryo's arm. "Look, Minato Namikaze is called the Yellow Flash. You're called the Black Reaper. It's not only symmetrical, but the Reaper is much stronger than the Flash, isn't it?" Sarutobi Ryo shook his head, not paying attention to these trivial matters, but looked at Yakushi Nono, who had a solemn expression. "Ryo-sama, according to our people's reports, your actions have been very successful. The one in Kyoto of the Land of Fire can't sit still anymore and is coming from there." That one naturally referred to one of the 12 Guardian Ninja. Sarutobi Ryo's humble but firm reply, as well as his decisive methods in recent days, seemed to have slightly changed Yakushi Nono's attitude. "I need detailed information about the 12 Guardian Ninja." Sarutobi Ryo made his request. If that guy came, then he would have to make corresponding preparations. Nono nodded and took out a scroll. Sarutobi Ryo unfolded it, and various information was quickly read. The 12 Guardian Ninja were a private army, specially protecting the daimyo. Except for Asuma, who entered it in later generations, at other times, the selection of ninjas was carried out among the common people. The Land of Fire was vast and rich, and Konoha Ninja Village could not take care of every inch of land. Therefore, various wild ninjas with some qualifications became the choice for recruitment. The qualification for the 12 Guardian Ninjas assessment, Jonin, is the basic quality requirement. Nono adjusted her glasses and explained. That is to say, each of the 12 Guardian Ninja had at least Jonin strength, because they are the daimyo's private army and not from Konoha, so some people's political views may not be compatible with ours. Nono said vaguely. In simple terms, These people relied on the daimyo's position and didn't really care about Konoha. I have mobilized the root companions in the surrounding area. It's best to capture her alive, interrogate her before making a decision. Understood. Sarutobi Ryo replied lightly and put away the scroll. Then he got up and entered the underground space compacted with earth release. There, Sarutobi Ryo would start his daily practice every day these past few days. Soon, there was a banging explosion underground. In Yamanaka Kei's sensory vision, her young master's strength was growing stronger and stronger. Chapter 24. 12 Guardian Ninja, the enemy appears. 2 days later, in the afternoon, the sun was setting little by little. A blonde girl with a single ponytail stood on the beach, observing the sunset. The orange-golden light coated her fair face with a layer of dazzling luster. Sarutobi Ryo stared at her profile, ending today's outing. At the strong request of his childhood sweetheart, Sarutobi Ryo did not practice taijutsu today, but played with her all day. "Young master, I want to eat street snacks later." The girl turned her head and showed a bright smile. This smile had a deep, infectious power. Sarutobi Ryo nodded slightly and then took her hand. Yamanaka Kei's cheeks turned red, as if she remembered their first kiss that night. The two strolled on the beach, listening to the sound of the waves crashing. They slowly returned to the street. By the time it was completely dark, the port town at night became lively again. Everywhere were vendors selling goods and food. "I want to eat takoyaki," Yamanaka Kei said, pointing to a shop. So, a moment later, she was holding a handful of takoyaki, and just as the two were wandering aimlessly, a woman in gorgeous clothes walked towards them. Whether it was the clothes or the jewelry, it could be seen that they were very valuable. It was no exaggeration to describe her as bejeweled. "Little girl, are you here for sightseeing too?" She stopped in front of Yamanaka Kei and began to size them up. "Yes." Yamanaka Kei blinked her eyes, her expression innocent. "Are you a tourist too, big sister?" Sarutobi Ryo didn't say anything. Ever since the other party appeared, Sarutobi Ryo's expression had not changed, but he had already become extremely vigilant in his heart. Every muscle and bone was ready to explode and fight at any time. Because in his right eye's vision, the other party's body was like a fireball emitting a lot of light and heat. This clearly distinguished her from the vast crowd around her. Judging from the strength of the chakra, it had reached the quality of a jonin. This was tantamount to throwing a star into a pile of dull pebbles. Jonin-level power was active in the other party's body. And what made Sarutobi Ryo feel even more familiar was the bloody smell that lingered on the other party, or rather, the faint killing intent. The kind of contemptuous and arrogant attitude of a predator towards the lower levels was vividly displayed on her body. After chatting casually for a few words, the other party let out a silver bell-like laugh. "It might not be very peaceful here in the next few days. Little girl, you should leave here with your companion as soon as possible." Sarutobi Ryo stared coldly as the other party disappeared into the crowd. At this time, Yamanaka Kei also changed from an innocent and pure expression to a devilish smile. "Is this the target? Looks like she's not ordinary." In the original story, Paine said that each of the 5 great countries had a population of 100 million people. So, the 12 Guardian Ninja were 12 elites who were fished out from 100 million people. Even if the 12 were not the strongest, they were at least first-class masters. Every time the daimyo recruited, countless people flocked to it. How could such an existence be an ordinary extra? Let's go back. 21. Section 21. A bad feeling arose in his heart, and Sarutobi Ryo immediately grabbed Yamanaka Kei's hand and quickly turned back. Yamanaka Kei, young master, the boss hasn't given me the change yet." At the same time, in the courtyard rented by Yakushi Nono, more than a dozen root ninja rushed from various nearby areas, preparing to join hands to capture the target. Just as Nono nodded, finished counting the number of people, and was about to explain to them, outside the wall, with the appearance of a figure, a silver bell-like laughter also resounded throughout the scene. "Konoha ninja?" Nono and more than a dozen root ninja immediately looked over. They saw a figure covered in jewels and treasures soaring into the sky, jumping in from the outer wall. The target has appeared. Capture her. Nono shouted loudly. The well-trained crowd was stunned for a second, because most ninjas don't pursue the ultimate material enjoyment. Even the Sannin, who like gambling and drugs, can't be considered extravagant in their material lives, let alone wearing a body full of jewels. This is like a soldier wearing gold and silver, or even a big gold chain around his neck, which is staggering. From here, you can see the difference between the Guardian Shinobi 12 and regular ninjas. Nono immediately realized that the scout responsible for monitoring and tracking the other party's movements had been killed. Not only that, the other party followed the clues and directly found their assembly point. And it was during their second of days that many things had enough time to happen. Chi. Only a sharp whistling sound was heard, and the target who had drawn her katana pointed her sword at the crowd. The next moment, the gorgeous figure landed in the courtyard and rushed towards the crowd. Roars, exclamations, low shouts, and painful groans continued to sound. Shadow Clone is a B-rank Jonin-level ninjutsu that can create one or more clones that are indistinguishable from the real thing. Neither sensory ninjas nor dojutsu ninjas can see through the authenticity of the Shadow Clone. This ninjutsu, invented by the second Hokage, Senju Tobirama, was later carried forward by the ninjas and widely adopted. Sarutobi Ryo didn't rashly chase after him before because he considered that if the other party used a trick to lure him away, Nono and the others would probably suffer. Now that he saw it, it really developed this way. Buzz. Seeing her companions fall, Nono immediately raised her arms and joined the battle. She saw a faint green glow rising from her hands, which was the A-rank medical ninjutsu, mystical palm technique. This kind of ninjutsu can easily cut through other people's skin, flesh, and even bones. It possesses a power sharper than a scalpel. A-rank mystical palm technique. When the enemy saw this scene, she immediately restrained her contemptuous expression, because in the entire ninja world, there are only a few medical ninjas whose medical ninjutsu aptitude can reach A rank. However, medical ninjutsu talent does not represent combat talent. A low shout. The enemy went towards Nono, but as soon as they fought, the gap between them became apparent. Nono, who was a little younger than Sarutobi Ryo, although she had an alluring figure, was at best a young girl. Strictly speaking, she is a child. Her current title is Chunin, and she is simply no match for a Jonin-level monster. Just when Nono was in danger and about to die, a palm brought a thunderous explosion and was imprinted from behind the enemy. Feeling the terrifying force oscillating behind her, the enemy widened her eyes, and the original action of drawing the sword changed to sideways, dodging to the side. Her reaction was undeniably fast, but, after all, she was still a beat late. Bang! The air force that was struck from the air directly hit her body. Crushing palm. It was not until this time that Sarutobi Ryo's low groan sounded from the darkness. Chapter 25. I am stronger than you think. Hyuga clan's 8 trigrams vacuum palm. At the moment of being hit, a warning bell quickly rang in her heart. Pa! Her body staggered a few times, stood firm, and looked back. Her expression suddenly became relaxed. Not the Hyuga clan. Because of Sarutobi Ryo's appearance, the crowd, who had been defeated and routed, regrouped. Young Master Ryo, be careful. The other party is very powerful. Yakushi Nono kindly reminded. Yes. Sarutobi Ryo nodded and reopened his posture. At the same time, Sarutobi Ryo's thoughts flowed in his heart. The quality of a Jonin-level enemy is different. As everyone knows, the world of Naruto is a world dominated by chakra. This magical energy called chakra resides in the body of every person, even living beings. The professions that can use chakra are called ninjas, samurai, and priestesses. As strength increases, chakra will also have an unimaginable impact on the human body. Commonly, it is the ability to resist blows. A chunin, such as Obito in the original book, was hit by a rock more than 1 meter square falling from a high place, and half of his body was almost smashed. A Kage-level powerhouse, such as Kakashi, who awakened Mangekyo in the Shippuden period in the original book, was kicked away by Kakuzu and broke more than a dozen towering trees in a row. Kakashi's reaction was only to sit on the ground for less than 2 seconds before recovering. This energy, called chakra, will subtly strengthen and even transform a human body. For example, the second Kazekage, Shaman, invented the magnetic release that humans can use based on Shikaku's magnet release. When humans learn magnetic release, this Kekii Genkai will change the host's DNA, making him completely different from ordinary people. So, it was obviously very reasonable that the woman was only staggered a few steps after being hit by a palm from the air just now. If it were an ordinary person, I am afraid that those gang members would have their hearts shattered by a palm. In Sarutobi Ryo's opinion, the physical fitness of the woman in front of him is stronger than the Kirigakure ninja he encountered during the last Land of Whirlpools mission. Of course, it is not certain who is stronger between her and Ringo Amuri. The third Hokage's son, Sarutobi Ryo. Obviously, the other party recognized his identity. "We meet again." Suddenly, she said this sentence again. As the words were spoken, the chakra on her body began to skyrocket visibly. It's like she has become stronger out of thin air. Combining her dialogue and performance, Sarutobi Ryo knew that the other party had most likely released the shadow clone that had just been in contact with him. Shadow clone consumes the body's chakra. But when the shadow clone is released, those chakras will return to the body. It looks like it has become stronger out of thin air. At the same time, the memory of a shadow clone will also return to the body and be shared by the body. Looking at the enemy whose chakra intensity began to climb and emitted stronger heat, Sarutobi Ryo only had high fighting spirit in his heart. Because you are the one who made a fortune from the national disaster, right? Before making a complete move, he still had to ask clearly first. It's me, so what? While the two were talking, Yakushi Nono raised her hand, ready to issue an order. Sarutobi Ryo looked at her and said, "You all stand where you are. Leave this to me." Because just from the corpses on the ground and the previous fight, Sarutobi Ryo knew that Yakushi Nono and others could not deal with this guy. It's not to say that the ninjas of Root are not strong enough. It's just that within an organization, the strength of ninjas is also divided into different levels. There are naturally many masters under Danzo, but they are not here now. After all, this is just an Umbu assessment mission, an entry-level mission, and it is impossible to send a bunch of strong people to come and watch. Nono hesitated for a second before reissuing the order to stand by. So, pairs of eyes paid attention to the confrontation on the scene. Then let's do it. Now, on the charge of betraying the country, arrest or kill you. Sarutobi Ryo shouted in a low voice. A Jonin, even if he hasn't joined Umbu, has a lot of authority to do things. This kind of behavior of betraying the country can of course be executed on the spot. Hey, a series of silver bell-like laughter sounded, and the other party seemed to have returned to her arrogance. How much strength will a pampered young master have? I advise you not to look down on people, old woman. Yamanaka Kei scolded first, and at the same time as speaking, she began to form seals. Seeing the Yamanaka clan's iconic blonde ponytail, fair skin, and thin lips, these clan characteristics. The other party, of course, immediately recognized it. She saw the enemy suddenly jump and began to move her body. Yamanaka Kei, who put her hands together and made a strange seal posture, was actually just firing a blank gun to scare people. She didn't really use the secret technique. 22. Section 22, after all, using the mind-body switch technique on a strong opponent made it difficult to hit them, but it could disrupt the enemy's movements and act as a deterrent. The next moment, Sarutobi Ryo seized the opportunity, taking a step forward, and with a loud bang, the floor tile shattered. He shot out like a cannonball. This scene made Yamanaka and Noichi and the Root ninjas widen their eyes, involuntarily letting out low gasps. Is this the strength of a Jonin? They had also heard that Sarutobi Ryo had become a Jonin. Today, seeing Sarutobi Ryo casually shatter the hard bluestone with a single kick, they were all completely convinced. Strength, is always one of the key factors in earning the respect of others. At this point, everyone understood that this low-profile second-generation Hokage's son was not a good-for-nothing. On the contrary, he was very strong. But Sarutobi Ryo's next performance would overturn their perception. Because I'm stronger than anyone thinks. Chirp! The enemy slashed out with a knife, heading straight for Sarutobi Ryo's face. Sarutobi Ryo's right eye pupil contracted, and the things in front of him were so clear in the darkness. Everything was as bright as day. So, bang! Sarutobi Ryo slapped out a palm, directly shaking the katana away from the side of the blade. Then, the right palm was once again blasted out through the air, with a burst of crackling explosions from the palm. The power of the air force blasted out through the air was more than several times stronger. Ah! A shrill and angry scream rang out. Everyone's eyes blurred. The two had finished fighting, and then the enemy with the title of Guardian Ninja 12 was blown away. The harbor town, which could still be seen, became pitch black. In this darkness, the courtyard was of course unable to stay out of it. Jonin-level ninjas had excellent dynamic vision, and the two figures came and went. For Yamanaka and Noichi and others with weaker strength, they could only barely see two blurry shadows by relying on the faint light projected by the stars in the sky. The enemy screamed shrilly and slashed out with a knife. At a very close distance, Sarutobi Ryo did not give her a chance to form seals at all. As the saying goes, an inch longer, an inch stronger. But the advantage of weapons seemed to be of no use under Sarutobi Ryo's violent taijutsu. The collapsing palm attack that could be released through the air forcibly pulled the battle advantage to this side. Bang! With another move, the devastating power blasted out, and the enemy flew backwards into the wall. With a series of bangs and rumbles, the courtyard wall collapsed. Powe! After spitting out a mouthful of blood, the enemy quickly got up. After only a dozen or so moves, she had clearly realized that the other party's strength, speed, and explosive power were all above her. The key was that he was also extremely proficient in taijutsu. Sarutobi Ryo-sama has the upper hand. Yamanaka and Noichi stared blankly at this scene. Her surprise was not without reason. This was not normal, because most ninjas in this ninja world looked down on taijutsu ninjas. Before, Might Dai had made a name for himself in battle. Few ninjas would value pure taijutsu. Even the Reikage clan in Kumogakure mainly used lightning escape to temper their bodies. Judgment error, as expected of the third Hokage's son. The beautiful Kunoichi couldn't help but think of Sarutobi Hiruzen, known as the Ninja Professor, who was not only proficient in 7-attribute ninjutsu, but also rumored to be able to sweep through the army with taijutsu. Now it seemed that this second-generation Hokage's son, whom she considered to be a waste, was not a good-for-nothing. Not only was he strong, but he was also more cold and ruthless. Then, there was another series of silvery laughter. Immediately afterwards, with a bang, burning flames lit up on the blade. Fire release. Chakra flow. The blazing light reflected her figure and illuminated the courtyard. It was as if a sun suddenly rose from the courtyard. The sudden change of light and darkness made Yamanaka and Noichi and the others narrow their eyes subconsciously. This was a normal biological reaction. A moment of blankness suddenly appeared on everyone's retinas. At this moment, the enemy moved. The high heat wrapped around the katana and slashed fiercely at Sarutobi Ryo. Chakra flow. Yamanaka and Noichi was surprised. This was a technique that only a few ninjas could master, which was to attach chakra to a weapon, creating a flowing scene. The young master preferred to call this technique enchantment. By enchanting, the lethality of the weapon could be greatly increased. It was said that the quality of the white fang of Konoha's sword was extremely fragile, but relying on the sharp chakra enchantment, it was indestructible and became a magical weapon that could easily cut through even metal. In this amazing firelight, under the worried and surprised gaze of everyone, Sarutobi Ryo raised his hands and began to form seals calmly. Water release. Bubble chaos wave. Boom! The chakra spit out from his mouth was converted into water attribute and then shaped into ninjutsu. The seal was the guide, and it was also the method of finalizing ninjutsu. A large area of bubble torrents rushed towards the opponent like a white waterfall, completely engulfing her in just a moment. This move was a sea-level ninjutsu, and the absolute lethality was not great, but it had an extremely strong impact ability. Soon, the enemy who rushed out of the water curtain revealed her wet figure. Along with it, most of the scorching heat wave disappeared from the blade. The talent of the ninjutsu professor was brought into full play at this moment. As long as it was playing ninjutsu, especially conventional ninjutsu, there were almost no problems that Sarutobi Ryo could not deal with. If he used fire, I will use water to restrain the attributes. Bang! Sarutobi Ryo slapped out a palm, directly knocking the katana out of the opponent's hand. Then, the fist that could shake even a rock was firmly printed on the opponent's body. Looking at the way the other party rolled to the ground and quickly got up, Sarutobi Ryo thought, as expected of a jonin, her physical fitness was strong. Since just now, she had been hit at least 7 or 8 times. Looking at the injury, at most a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. "Kill you!" The other party got up and began to scream frantically. This was just a trapped beast fighting. She formed seals while screaming. But the next second, the scream turned into a scream. Because Sarutobi Ryo took a step forward, and the newly learned taijutsu 6 styles began to greet her mercilessly. Her body was strong, right? "Then I will blow you up." Collapse palm. A palm sent her flying. He took an arrow step to come behind her, pressed her head, and pressed at the ground. Pressure palm. With a bang, the ground exploded, and spider web-like cracks spread rapidly in all directions. Rising strike palm. Another palm directly sent her flying into the air. At the moment of landing, Sarutobi Ryo sank his shoulders and dropped his elbows and slammed into it. Sudden shoulder. Watching Sarutobi Ryo's series of taijutsu combos, the other party was beaten without any power to fight back, and only the sound of fists hitting flesh could be heard in the field. Everyone couldn't help but be stunned. As Sarutobi Ryo's bones crackled, the final blow mixed with all his strength was used, which also announced the end of the battle. Rock Strike. A series of 6 styles attacks completely treated the other party as a sandbag. The last ultra-right fist with unparalleled power directly blasted the other party out of the courtyard. The other party flying in the air quickly rushed out of the courtyard passively and fell on the grass outside, not knowing whether she was alive or dead. Sarutobi Ryo maintained the posture of punching, slowly put away his posture, and exhaled a white breath. Then, he walked unhurriedly towards the outside. When everyone came back to their senses, Sarutobi Ryo was already carrying the other party's body in his hand. Guard outside. I want to interrogate her. 23. Section 23. It wasn't until Sarutobi's gaze swept over them that everyone awoke as if from a dream. As Sarutobi passed Nan, he stopped. "Are there any surgical tools?" Nan is a medical ninja, proficient in medical ninjutsu. But often medical ninjutsu also requires surgical tools for assistance. Scalpels, surgical forceps saws. These tools can be used to save people and also to kill people. Sarutobi was preparing to borrow some tools to interrogate the guy in his hands. Yes, Nan nodded quickly, completely abandoning the contempt she had shown at their first meeting. She handed Sarutobi a scroll. Then, footsteps sounded, and Sarutobi took the captured prisoner into the basement opened up with Earth Release. The others stared at Sarutobi's disappearing back, their eyes filled with surprise and respect. Chapter 27. Ruthless Interrogation. This was a pitch-black basement. It was surrounded by walls and floors with a high density. Earth Release ninjutsu can transform chakra into earth out of thin air, but this phenomenon only lasts for a certain period of time before it dissipates and returns to the most basic chakra particles in the world. However, the real-world soil compressed by Earth Release ninjutsu will always maintain its compacted shape. Clearly, this was a secret underground room that had been artificially created, And judging from the uneven surface of a structure, someone had previously conducted extremely intense taijutsu training here. That person was Sarutobi, the one known as the son of Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hith. The enchanting female ninja, bound tightly, curled her lips into a smile. Today, I guess I'm in your hands. I didn't expect. Slap. Before she could finish, Sarutobi slapped her across the face. The blow stunned her. Next I'll speak, and you'll answer. Sarutobi casually used earth release, and the ground rumbled, rising up a rectangular block of earth, turning it into a piece of furniture like a table. He unrolled the scroll that Nan had given him, and in the dim candlelight, the neatly arranged surgical instruments within were revealed. The shiny tools emitted a captivating cold light, leaving no doubt as to their sharpness. Since you already know what I've done, you naturally won't consider letting me go. Do you think I'll tell you the information you want to know? Oh, Sarutobi indifferently responded to her words. I've seen many people who would rather die than submit, but in the end, they all obediently reveal what I want to know. As he spoke, Sarutobi picked up a scalpel and examined it before his eyes. It wasn't a deliberate pose, but a feeling of nostalgia. It's been a long time since I've done something like this. Young master, what's been a long time? Yamanaka Kei, who had followed him into the basement, walked over with interest. Clearly, she was very interested in interrogation. Humans eat chickens, chickens eat bugs, ninjas eat everything. The food chain, it's really interesting. To be more precise, it was like a child squatting on the ground, pinching and burning ants one by one, only finding it interesting. Believe me, if I interrogate you, you'll die a little easier. Sarutobi stared at her, slowly placing the scalpel at his side. Because what I need to remind you is her, Yamanaka Kei's, cousin, is the leader of our Leaf Village Intelligence Department, Yamanaka Inoichi. Upon hearing the name, Yamanaka Inoichi, she finally lost her composure. The ninja world has never lacked geniuses. Just like Minato Namikaze's meteoric rise, Yamanaka Inoichi, who wasn't much older, became the leader of the Leaf Village Intelligence Department at a young age. He was known throughout the nations for his exceptional abilities and terrifying intelligence-gathering skills. Fighting the Yellow Flash might only result in being killed or captured, but if one fell into Yamanaka Inoichi's hands, everything in their brain will be violently extracted. In severe cases, the brain would be scrambled into a mess, and they might even become an idiot. As Yamanaka Inoichi's cousin, Yamanaka Kei not only inherited the Yamanaka clan's secret techniques and bloodline aptitude, but she was even more ruthless in personality. For Yamanaka Inoichi, obtaining information was just work. But for Yamanaka Kei, torturing the enemy's brain could make her happy for a while, which was enough as a pastime. Are you sure I won't just commit suicide first? The other party's face changed several times, losing her previous arrogance. No, you won't. Sarutobi placed the scalpel next to her neck. Even though she had become very disheveled, her jewelry-laden attire was still very eye-catching. From a standard ninja to someone who pursues extravagance, accumulating a lot of money, becoming an upper-class person, losing the sharpness between life and death, and gaining a humble desire to survive. Simply put, once you have money, you feel like your life is worth something. How could such a person want to die? Sarutobi looked at her with a mocking expression. He didn't think she would hide poison in her teeth or anything like that. Exposed, her body began to tremble slightly. Shame? Hatred? Unable to save face? Unable to step down? Perhaps all sorts of thoughts were present, but that was no longer the point. Then, the first question, your gender? What kind of work do you do? The other party, several hours later, Sarutobi asked almost all the information. From the other party's background, growth, experience, to everything now, even including her own skills. That's right, even the cultivation experience of Shadow Clone Technique and the Fire Release Chakra Flow were obtained by Sarutobi. This was equivalent to getting all the experience and skills of Jinin for free. And when Sarutobi's unintentional question was asked, The other party's next answer exceeded Sarutobi's expectations. This even caused a change in Sarutobi's eyes for the first time. Question: do you have any other skills? And the other party's answer was, I also tried to cultivate steel released. Sarutobi stared intently at the prisoner in front of him, his eyes flashing with amazing brilliance. This scene even made Yamanaka couldn't help but look sideways. Young master? You said, taking a deep breath, Sarutobi returned to his indifferent appearance. You cultivated steel release. Steel release is also a type of bloodline limit. As mentioned before, there are two main categories of bloodline limits. One is mutated body organs like the Byakugan and Sharingan of the Hyuga and Uchiha clans. The other is the fusion of two chakra attributes to create a new attribute. Steel release belongs to the latter's second category. Its function is to increase the strength of the body surface. And there is an interesting little detail. Even if the names of the bloodline limits sound exactly the same, the functions may be vastly different. For example, lava release has three expressions: Rishi covering with magma, Karatsuchi spitting out cement, and Dodai spitting out rubber. The different ratios of chakra attributes fused by the caster and the different individual qualities will lead to differences in the final expression of the bloodline limit. At this moment, Sarutobi finally realized the problem. Before, he had attacked with all his might, connecting dozens of blows in a row before barely incapacitating the other party. Sarutobi initially thought that this was because the other party's physical fitness was off the charts. After all, she was a Jnin. But in fact, swish! Sarutobi rolled up the other party's sleeves, and her jade-like arms appeared before his eyes. Sarutobi stared intently at the other party's skin, looking like some kind of pervert. But soon, Sarutobi discovered the secret. Your skin. That's right, I used steel release to harden my skin, the other party muttered. Although the skin had hardened, the internal organs and most of the muscles were not within the strengthening range of steel release. So, facing Sarutobi's blunt force beating, she was still violently shaken to the point of vomiting blood. This was like using a sledgehammer to strike a knight wearing medieval armor. Even if the armor can resist ordinary swords, it will still be defeated by the big iron hammer. Tell me the cultivation method of steel release. Sarutobi's tone turned cold, even with a hint of urging, because this method of fusing one's own bloodline limit was too valuable. 24. Section 24, Chapter 28. Steel release Kekkei Genkai. As everyone knows, the world of Naruto is a world of bloodlines. From a Sharingan and Byakugan to Hashirama Senju's would release, Madara Uchiha's eternal Manjiki Sharingan, and the reincarnations of Indra and Azura. Finally, to the Tsutsuki aliens. Everything is filled with manifestations of bloodlines. The Naruto series is also jokingly referred to by people in my previous life as the story of the Tsutsuki family, which says a lot. Originally, this was understandable. However, the existence of bloodlines greatly widens the gap between people's talents and strengths. At a glance, ordinary people are left with only deep despair and helplessness. This isn't just a matter of whether or not you have a gun, but rather the difference in combat power between an ordinary person with a gun and someone piloting a cosmic star destroyer. However, this is not without the possibility of change. The history of the ninja world over the past 1,000 years, especially after the Warring States period, has seen a flourishing of talents. The second Kazekage, Shaman, was just an ordinary person, but based on Shikaku's magnet release, he eventually developed a magnet release that human ninjas could use. This led to the fame of the third Kazekage, known as the strongest Kazekage, and Rose's subsequent inheritance. The second Tsuchikage, was also just an ordinary person, but he combined three attributes to create a Kekkei TTA that surpassed Kekkei Genkai. He later passed it on to his disciple, the current third Tsuchikage, Noki. Even Tobirama Senju, who came from the Senju clan, strictly speaking, created many forbidden techniques that ordinary ninjas could also use and that could change the ninja world. These were eventually inherited by Orochimaru, Kabuto Yakushi, and others. If we remove the added advantages of family background, clan, and intelligence, then there are also inspiring figures like Might Guy, and Rock Lee, who are both ordinary and extraordinary. Ryo Sarutobi inherited Hiruzen Sarutobi's talent as a professor and the Sarutobi clan's natural superhuman strength. But strictly speaking, compared to the many bloodline users, he is indeed somewhat overshadowed. And to become Hokage and change this world, strength is essential. Ice release. Just then, Ryo Sarutobi muttered softly. He couldn't help but recall the hint that appeared on Yurito Ringoji during the mission to the land of whirlpools last time. Ice release. Possibility. In other words, ice release perhaps could also be manually created by ordinary ninjas who are not from the Yuki clan. Haha. If I tell you, will you let me go? Seeing Ryo Sarutobi's interest, she began to negotiate. Ryo Sarutobi waved his hand and directly signaled for Yamanaka K to come. Yamanaka K, who had been waiting impatiently, walked up to her excitedly. The smiling girl extended her fair right hand and placed it on top of her head. The screams before execution were like miserable wails. Ho ho! Looking at the female ninja, whose body twitched and whose eyes rolled back in a second, Ryo Sarutobi's expression was unusually indifferent. Traitors die, because what she betrayed was the 10 million people of the Land of Fire. Every time the Land of Fire is betrayed, it is always the common people who suffer. No matter what, all the costs will eventually be transferred to the ordinary people at the bottom. The people's taxes support this thing. How could Ryo Sarutobi let her go? Yamanaka K's eyes flickered, and she quickly obtained countless streams of information from the other party's mind. The Yamanaka clan's secret technique has the greatest effect when the other party's willpower is weak or seriously injured and unprepared. If the other party was unharmed, Yamanaka K would naturally not be able to do it so easily. However, at this moment, her brain was immediately turned into a mess. After all, Yamanaka K doesn't have any humanitarian concepts. Just like a cook who makes dark cuisine, every time she cooks, it will be a very terrifying disaster. Okay, before long, Yamanaka K completed the acquisition of the remaining information. And as a matter of course, the other party also became an idiot. Overly crude methods will eventually lead to this. Young Master, the combined attributes of Steel Release are the fusion of Earth Release and Yang Release. It is not surprising for a Jonin to possess two attributes, because this is one of the assessment criteria for Jonin. The Guardian Ninja 12 do not belong to Konoha's jurisdiction, but the basic assessment standards are indispensable. This rigid requirement that Jonin must possess two chakra attributes was relaxed only after Might Guy became famous in the war. Thus, those who only have one chakra attribute, or even no chakra attribute, are allowed to become Jonin. Earth Release and Yang Release. 90% of ninjutsu that change the physical body are related to Yang Release. Yang Release is the essence of medical ninjutsu. The Akimichi clan's series of secret techniques are also included in Yang Release. According to the official databook Book of Array, the Senju clan even inherited the Six Paths Sage's Yang Release. Therefore, the use of Yang Release is ubiquitous in the ninja world. As Yamanaka K explained, Ryo Sarutobi gradually learned the specific method of training Steel Release. The woman in front of him, who was a member of the Guardian Ninja 12, had accumulated a lot of money and began to try to fuse the Kekkei Genkai in order to save her life. Unexpectedly, she accidentally succeeded. Should it be said that it was the fear of death? The preciousness of one's own life? These desires ultimately allowed her to truly fuse the life-saving Kekkei Genkai. If another Jonin had come to deal with her today, for example, Shirayuki Yamagata or Yamanaka Ino, it's really not certain that he could have captured them. But she just happened to encounter him. Even with the initial protection of Steel Release, she ultimately ended up being captured. Of course, this is also related to the fact that her Steel Release training time was not long. I remember that in the movie, Hiriko also uses Steel Release. Hiriko's steel release is to transform the body into a black metallic form. It needs to be actively cast and doesn't usually have much effect. However, the steel release of the woman in front of him is to harden the skin. It's a persistent use of chakra to change the skin, equivalent to a permanent passive ability. As long as she continues to train, it will become stronger and stronger. The training steps for this type of steel release are as follows. First step, first fuse earth and yang attributes in a certain proportion to cultivate steel release attribute chakra. Second step, circulate the steel release chakra through the surface of the skin. Through the power of vibration, constantly vibrate the skin to change its properties, and finally, form a force of tremor. In the end, no matter what attack hits the skin, it will be deflected and weakened to some extent, thereby achieving the purpose of enhancing defense. The ultimate outcome in the future is uncertain, but currently, this woman is already cultivated to the point where she can be hit by ordinary taijutsu without harm. He was able to defeat her so easily because of his own extraordinary strength, coupled with the violent taijutsu given by Orochimaru. If it were other jonin, ordinary ninjas who are not from the Akimichi clan, it would be absolutely impossible to do this. They can only rely on ninjutsu or powerful weapons to break through. Immunity to ordinary taijutsu can give you an advantage in head-to-head combat, especially in melee. The greater value of steel release lies in 3 points. 1. It is a bloodline limit, not belonging to any single attribute of the 5 elements. Therefore, there is no such thing as being restrained by a certain attribute. 2. It does not require hand seals. There is no need to elaborate on how great the advantage of not needing hand seals is. Combat is always a matter of seconds. 3. It can also slightly reduce the damage of sharp weapons. This value exceeds many things, because even a 6 pads level powerhouse might be stabbed to death by a small kunai. Because 6 pads levels are also divided into ordinary Earthlings 6 pads level, Moonlings 6 pads level, Ten Tails Jinchuriki 6 paths, and Otsutsuki Alien 6 paths. Not all 6 paths levels have resistance to sharp weapons. Sarutobi Ryo's heart was burning with passion, wishing he could sit down and start cultivating steel release immediately so that he could possess this bloodline limit. Once he relies on his own cultivation to fuse a bloodline limit, it will be like opening the door to a new world or changing the real prelude to this world. Power and power. Defeating this woman is considered capturing the mastermind behind the scenes and also extracting information. The Umbu assessment is considered complete. As for how to deal with the aftermath, that is a matter for Danzo and other high-level officials to worry about. And before cultivating, there's also a piece of information that made Sarutobi Ryo decide to make some arrangements. That is, the Kirigakure ninja who contacted this woman is none other than the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, Kushimaru Kuriare. The next agreed date for the exchange is 1 week later. The location, near the ruins of the land of whirlpools, the small island nation, land of waves. After thinking for a moment, Sarutobi Ryo quickly made a decision. Aoi, go write a report to Yakushi Nono, and also have her send a letter to Danzo. Just say that I won't be going back for the time being. I'm going to stay here for a week. Sarutobi Ryo raised his hand, making the cultivation gesture of extracting chakra. Cultivate for a week first, and try to fuse steel release as much as possible. In the meantime, control the gangsters at the pier, let them operate normally to provide goods for disguise, and finally, go meet Kushimaru Kuriare. Chapter 29. Danzo. Hiruzen. Your son has the potential of a Hokage, while Sarutobi Ryo was devoted to trying to cultivate steel release. The information from the pier town was transmitted by Yakushi Nono, returning to Konoha like the wind. Underground Konoha, the lair of root. A root ninja unfolded a scroll and injected chakra into one of the seals. With a bang, smoke rose, and a diary-like booklet appeared in the center of the summoning formation. Picking up the booklet, this root ninja went to the surface without looking back, and finally presented this booklet to Danzo in the Umbu office. The ninjas of Root all have special contact methods. Every once in a while, They will use this summoning book to exchange information. Danzo opened the information log written by Nono, which detailed what happened there. When Danzo saw that Sarutobi Ryo had unhesitatingly killed several gang leaders and easily subdued the mastermind behind the scenes who was a Guardian Ninja 12, his expression underwent some subtle changes. Among the high-level officials of Konoha, there is an unwritten consensus. Many people are optimistic about Namake's Minato, believing that he, who inherited the flying thunder god talent of Senju Tobirama, is the most suitable candidate for the next Hokage. But Namake's Minato is Sarutobi Hiruzen's grand disciple, Jiraiya's disciple. Although everyone belongs to the Senju lineage, strictly speaking, they are not from the same faction as himself. 25. Section 25. Dans closed the intelligence report, his eyes gleaming. Rather than supporting Minato Namake's all the way, Dans would prefer to take on the position of Hokage himself. But Dans was also very clear that as long as Hiruzen Sarutobi was in office, he would have no chance, so supporting another person became an unavoidable choice. Perhaps Sarutobi Ryo's figure flashed through Danz's mind in an instant. In the same class as Minato Namake's, unremarkable since childhood, or rather, his performance was mediocre. After the end of the Second Shinobi World War, he began to rise like a rising star. The last Junin test mission in the land of whirlpools, this time the Umbu test mission. The battle results of both missions were extremely shocking. This seemed to foreshadow something. A late bloomer? Or had he been hiding his strength all along, concealing himself very deeply? But no matter what, Sarutobi Ryo is a rare young talent. Dans felt a fire in his heart, and the idea of recruiting him arose. Bring Sarutobi Ryo into Root, constantly instill his own ideas into him, and eventually make him his spokesperson. What's even more gratifying is that Sarutobi Ryo is Sarutobi Hiruzen's son. If he could turn Sarutobi Hiruzen's son into one of his own, it would obviously be a pleasing thing. In addition, unlike Hiruzen, that kid has darkness hidden in his eyes. As the darkness of shinobi, Dans noticed a certain darkness in Sarutobi Ryo's heart through his observation of Sarutobi Ryo at the entrance of the Umbu office earlier. Of course, Dans always insisted that Sarutobi Ryo was a very pure person. So, the darkness in that kid's heart is also very pure. What kind of darkness is hidden in Sarutobi Ryo's heart? The specific details can be observed slowly later. Soon, Dans returned the intelligence report, and he wrote down an order to Non on another log. Agree to Sarutobi Ryo's request to stay for a week. Agree to Sarutobi Ryo's request to mobilize Higururi to assist in the assassination plan to meet the Kirigakure ninja after a week. Non, you're responsible for assisting Sarutobi Ryo in paving the way for his plan. I want to know every detail of the operation. After finishing the log, Dans got up, preparing to go to the Hokage's office and inform Sarutobi Hiruzen of the specific details of the assessment. 10 minutes later, Dans arrived at the Hokage's office. In a late-night office, Hiruzen Sarutobi was still working late into the night, reviewing documents. After the war, there were too many things to deal with. Temporary overtime for a period of time was a necessary thing. Dans, seeing his old friend coming late at night, Hiruzen Sarutobi looked a little surprised. I'm here to talk to you about Sarutobi Ryo's assessment. Dans sat on the chair and began to speak. After Dans finished speaking, Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't help but smile. Sarutobi Ryo, that child is really worry-free. Unlike the mischievous younger son of Soma, the eldest son, Sarutobi Ryo, had been very steady and mature since he was a child. From childhood to adulthood, the couple had hardly worried about him. He had been promoted steadily, although not as dazzling as a meteor, but at least he was considered mediocre. A late bloomer is also possible. Dans corrected and listed the highlights of Sarutobi Ryo in these two assessments. Just like Minato Namake's, Hiruzen Sarutobi was slightly taken aback. Minato Namake's was indeed not very conspicuous before the age of 10. After graduating from the Ninja Academy at the age of 10, he began to grow rapidly as if he had been enlightened. No one could have imagined that he could grow to this point today. Dans, are you saying Sarutobi Ryo is also like Minato and is now beginning to be enlightened? Well, I think Sarutobi Ryo has unlimited potential in the future. Umbu is indeed the place for him to be. Dans remained calm on the surface. In his heart, he was planning to gradually win over Sarutobi Ryo and turn him into one of his own. First, use the ordinary Umbu identity to paralyze Sarutobi Hiruzen. Then, let Sarutobi Ryo be promoted to the Umbu Squad leader, or even the leader of Umbu Squad 6. When that time comes, it will be the moment to completely win Sarutobi Ryo over to his command. Finally, try to support him in Orochimaru, but on both sides, and let one of them become the Hokage. Any parent would be very happy to hear others praise their children, and Hiruzen Sarutobi was no exception. With a smile on his face, he looked at Dans and said sincerely, Dans, it's really great that you can give Sarutobi Ryo, that child, such a high evaluation. It's nothing. Dans shook his head. I even think that your son, Sarutobi Ryo, has the talent equal to Minato Namake's. Maybe he is the one who is suitable to become the next Hokage. These words made Hiruzen Sarutobi smile even more, and the corners of Dan's mouth also rose slightly. Hiruzen Sarutobi was smiling. Dans was also smiling. Everyone has a bright future. Dans, then next let's talk about the Guardian Ninja 12 selling national property and petitioning the Fire Daime. Chapter 30. Sarutobi Ryo's first industry. The next morning, Higururi, who received the mobilization order, rushed to the port town in the eastern part of the Land of Fire. At the same time, Kakashi Hatake, who was sitting in the living room early in the morning, also waited for the arrangement of the Konoha high-level officials in anxiety. Mr. Tsukumo, outside the open door, in the courtyard, a figure appeared. Golden and a handsome and gentle face were very conspicuous. Jinin Minato Namake's. Tsukumo Hatake got up and greeted this rising new Jinin with his son Kakashi. Teacher Minato. Kakashi, who had just graduated, had a shining forehead protector. Obviously, he had been looking forward to the arrival of his guiding Jinin for a long time. After a brief greeting, Minato Namake's left with Kakashi, who was full of enthusiasm. Tsukumo Hatake looked at the backs of the two leaving, his mind surging. He had always been self-sufficient, but in the end, because he had a weakness, he was forced to embark on the road of standing in line. I hope this is a good thing. Tsukumo Hatake sighed and turned back to the house. Time passed. In the eastern part of the Land of Fire, in the port town where Sarutobi Ryo was located, some earth-shattering changes had taken place in these short few days. Sarutobi Ryo carried out a thorough cleansing of the gang forces with swift and decisive means. With the killing of more and more people with bad deeds, the promotion of new bosses, and the addition of new personnel, the gang's rules and systems have also undergone great changes. Originally, this gang was a small port industry that oppressed ordinary people. Later, with the intervention of the female ninja of the Guardian Ninja 12, this place became her private property. Now, after Sarutobi Ryo's integration, the local gang has become a regular transportation company, the kind that pays taxes to the official Land of Fire. In the Naruto world, there is such an industry as a transportation company, such as Gat in the original work. Gat relied on the shipping company to become a famous rich man in the ninja world, for which it can be seen how profitable the shipping company is. And Jiraiya and Kakashi in the original work have also shown bank passbooks. Some economic structures actually have a considerable realistic basis, compared to a small broken pier that can't be brought to the table. A transportation company is the future of a port town. Sarutobi Ryo's series of actions naturally made some legends spread like wildfire. For example, a man named Black Reaper became the new gang overlord. Sarutobi Ryo actually didn't spend much effort to complete this matter. After all, a Genin-level ninja is as terrifying as a monster to ordinary people. In fact, Sarutobi Ryo just simply reorganized the local gang and threw most of the affairs to Yamanaka K. As for the girl who was very interested in the underworld, she integrated the local forces into an iron plate in a few days. As for the methods used, Sarutobi Ryo could imagine them with his toes. At this point, Sarutobi Ryo had a real industry of his own. For a ninja, strength is very important. Making a living is also very important. Sarutobi Ryo didn't have so much time to worry about food, clothing, and expenses. Money is like a man's wings. As the saying goes, money is not omnipotent, but without money, it is impossible to do anything. 26. Section 26. A week passed in the blink of an eye. Yamanaka Ino, having indulged in a gangster fantasy, had become a veritable big sister. In the suburbs, a magnificent villa. The estate that once belonged to that woman now belonged to Sarutobi Ryo. Yamanaka Ino took out a bank book and placed it in front of Hyuga Rina. In the past few days, with Rina's arrival, Yamanaka Ino, who had pulled her in to help, accelerated the pace of unifying the Yakuza. The Byakugan of the Hyuga clan has a perspective distance of up to 10 kilometers. It can be of great use when catching people and investigating locations. The Byakugan girl with a flat chest looked at the bank book in her hand, her eyes changing slightly, because the other party gave her so much. Since becoming a ninja, she had never seen so much money. Money is the root of all evil, but it is also the source of happiness, okay? Rina, go out and wander around today, buy whatever you want. Yamanaka Ino patted her teammate's shoulder. From childhood to adulthood, Yamanaka Ino had always been like an older sister to Hyuga Rina. After all, Hyuga Rina had a miserable background and was a severely depressed girl, so Yamanaka Ino naturally cared for her more. After Hyuga Rina turned and left, Yamanaka Ino waved to her, "Be back on time before evening, don't overdo it. Tonight is the time for action. Let's go see how young master's training is going." Yamanaka Ino put away the other bank books and quickly turned and entered the underground space of the manor. In the spacious and huge underground, Sarutobi Ryo sat cross-legged in the center, with more than 10 identical cells sitting in front of him. This trick is the shadow clone cheat training method. The principle is to split out one or more shadow clones and let the shadow clones practice chakra nature transformation. Because the shadow clones can feed back memories, experiences, and knowledge to the main body, this is equivalent to one person being able to multitask. It is equivalent to upgrading from a single computer to parallel computing on multiple computers. The past week, Sarutobi Ryo's main body has been staying here. The one who went out was just one of his shadow clones. Multiple shadow clones training together is equivalent to turning on a multiple experience cheat. One shadow clone can increase the training speed by 1 time. 10 shadow clones can increase the training speed by more than 10 times. In the original work, Naruto used this trick to master the S-level wind style, Raisen Shuriken, in 1 week. Theoretically, the more shadow clones you split out, the faster the training speed will be. But there's a prerequisite. That is chakra amount. If a ninja is not a Jinchuriki and is not naturally gifted, then his chakra amount is actually limited. The less chakra you have, the fewer clones you can split out using the shadow clone technique, and the more risky it is to use. Sarutobi Ryo, as a member of the Sarutobi clan, has a strong body and a relatively large chakra amount, but not as perverted and exaggerated as a Jinchuriki. Using 10 shadow clones to train is about enough to maintain his basic combat level, so he can be ready to defend against the enemy at any time. Compared to Uzumaki Naruto, Sarutobi Ryo has a very big advantage. That is intelligence and the ninja professor talent inherited from Sarutobi Hiruzen. A powerful mind and talent bring about the ability to understand techniques at the speed of light. Structuring, analyzing, and reconstructing a technique is not too difficult. So, Sarutobi Ryo's training speed this week can be described as rapid progress. The combination of shadow clones and a highly intelligent mind ultimately resulted in very significant training results. After a week of hard training, Sarutobi Ryo's main body and shadow clones are now revealing a hint of vigor all over their bodies. In the field of vision of the main body's right eye, the chakra of the 10 shadow clones in front of him is flowing. like a gas, or like a thin film forming on their skin. This membrane, like a force field, is the result of Sarutobi Ryo's training. Steel Release, Bloodline Limit. Chapter 31. Crimson Lotus the next second. 6 shadow clones were dispelled, and memories, experiences, and chakra were fed back to Konoha. The remaining 4 shadow clones got up and walked towards Sarutobi Ryo's main body. As the 4 shadow clones took their stances, their fists and feet rained down on the main body. Bang, 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 bang. A series of punches and kicks suddenly rang out in the underground space. Yamanaka Ino, who had entered the underground, couldn't help but cover her ears. Ugh! An ear-piercing ringing echoed in her mind. The blonde ponytail girl couldn't help but sigh. Young Master has become even more powerful. Not to mention ordinary people, even ninjas, few dare to directly use their fists to fight against solid metal. That's no different from being crazy. After throwing a punch, Sarutobi Ryo contentedly retracted it. Not bad. The attack power has also become stronger. As for the reaction force, it will spread from the fist surface to the arm to evenly distribute the impact, which is equivalent to indirectly increasing offense and defense. Young Master, congratulations. Yamanaka Ino walked over and congratulated him. Yeah, report on the situation. Sarutobi Ryo turned and walked towards the surface. With the training complete, it was time to rest well, get some sleep, and then take action when he woke up at night. Yamanaka Ino followed behind him, explaining the recent situation. With the help of Rinne's Byakugan's insight, the security of the entire town has been thoroughly cleaned up. The domineering Yakuza gangs have also transformed into legitimate transportation companies that can provide employment opportunities for ordinary people. The former Yakuza members have become roles similar to security guards and urban management. Of course, those guys with bad records have been dealt with by Yamanaka Ino. In a short period of time, the security of the entire port town has become clear and bright. This is last month's income. Yamanaka Ino took out several bank books. In addition to making up for the tax amount, the remaining stolen money was returned to the local residents and used for construction and development. The remaining amount is the clean net profit, which is also the part that Sarutobi Ryo received. Sarutobi Ryo casually took out a bank book and handed it to Yamanaka Ino. Ino, thank you for your hard work. The girl twisted slightly, her face a little red. She only heard her say in a low voice, "This is our family's." Since the last time he kissed her and injected the will of fire into her, some changes had quietly taken place. Subsequently, Yamanaka Ino snatched the bank book and carefully put it away. When Sarutobi Ryo arrived at the surface, everything in front of him was fully furnished. From now on, this place has become an industry and a base. 27. Section 27. In the ninja world, it's not uncommon for ninjas to have additional businesses. For example, the Nara clan owns a forest in the Land of Fire. In the original story, Shikamaru designed and buried Haiden in that forest. Danzo's Root also has its own businesses to maintain the operation of the underground dark forces. There are too many examples like this. Where there are people, there will be a ninja world. Rather than letting others interfere here, it's better to do it yourself. That's Sarutobi Ryo's idea. At least, I will make this place better than when others run it. What is Nanoyu doing? Sarutobi Ryo sat down and took a sip of tea. She went to Wave Country to gather intelligence. Wave Country is only a few hours away from here. It requires crossing the ocean. With the speed of ninjas, they can reach there faster. Wave Country's geographical location is similar to that of Whirlpool Country. This country is located north of Whirlpool Country. If Kirigakure wants to invade Konoha, they will generally choose to land at the ruins of Whirlpool Country or Wave Country. Wave Country's advantage is that there is no ninja village. The country is very small and is a neutral country. The disadvantage is also that the land area is too small and the country is very poor, so it cannot hide a large army and can only operate with small units. I have arranged for Nanoyu's root companions to live in the manor. Yamanaka K set another arrangement. In order not to alert the enemy and arouse suspicion from Kirigakure ninjas, Nanoya personally went to Wave Country to investigate the enemy's whereabouts. In terms of intelligence gathering, perhaps only Kabuto and later generations can be compared with Nanoyu. The root members are hidden, concealing their existence. Okay, I understand. Sarutobi Ryo got up, intending to take a bath and get a good night's sleep. But at this moment, a series of exclamations suddenly sounded outside. She has light purple hair with a braid tied behind her head. Scattered footsteps sounded. Several bruised and swollen gangsters walked over, trembling as they stared at Sarutobi Ryo. Oh Lord, we really couldn't stop her. In order to maintain the confidentiality of the upcoming joint operation with Kirigakure, the gangsters acted as a disguised front. To ordinary people outside, it just seemed like there was an internal dispute within the gang, and then the local security suddenly improved. But in reality, this is a secret action base for Konoha's side. Since it's a secret location, naturally, outsiders can't know about it, and no one else can be let in. They certainly knew about Sarutobi Ryo's thunderous methods. The title of Black Reaper had long spread throughout the entire gang. Now that they let someone in and failed to fulfill their duties, they were naturally scared to death, afraid that Sarutobi Ryo would punch them to death. Is she a Kirigakure spy? Yamanaka K curled the corner of her mouth, subconsciously thinking. Using children as spies to exchange information. The people of Kirigakure can certainly do it. Wait a minute. Just as Yamanaka K was about to use the Yamanaka clan's secret technique to stir up the other party's brain, Sarutobi Ryo raised his hand and stopped her. Looking at the little girl lying on the ground again, Sarutobi Ryo asked faintly, "What's your name?" The little girl, unable to struggle, slowly dimmed her eyes, and then she uttered an answer that made Sarutobi Ryo's eyes light up. Gyurin. Chapter 32. First subordinate? Gyurin. Sarutobi Ryo's eyes lit up, comparing her appearance with the appearance in his memory. Finally, Sarutobi Ryo confirmed. This little girl is one of the reincarnation vessels chosen by Orochimaru in the original story. What abilities does she have? Sarutobi Ryo asked without showing any emotion, but many thoughts flashed through his mind. The gangsters who were asked quickly began to explain. Different from ordinary people's skills, that is, taijutsu, agile figure, excellent reaction, that is, physical fitness. More importantly, she knows ninjutsu. She can breathe fire. Several gangsters stared at Sarutobi Ryo, saying cautiously, "Okay, this is none of your business. Go down. Keep your mouths shut," as if nothing happened. Sarutobi Ryo waved his hand, and the few of them were relieved, bowed, and immediately went down. "Why did you intrude into our manor?" Sarutobi Ryo put his hands behind his back, signaling the root ninja to release her. Gyurin lay on the ground, looked around, her eyes filled with despair. Everyone who remained on the scene was a powerful being she could not resist. In that case, she can't avenge her. Sarutobi Ryo. Revenge? As Sarutobi Ryo inquired, the truth quickly surfaced. Gyurin's parents were a pair of wild ninjas. During the Warring States period, countless families fought each other. Later, the Senju and Uchiha joined forces to establish Konoha, and many families joined in. But there were also some families who didn't like Konoha, so they all went into hiding or left the land of fire. Gyurin's ancestors probably belonged to one of those inconspicuous existences. She originally lived with her parents, carefree. Later, that woman from the Guardian Ninja 12 appeared and began to integrate this port town. Gyurin's parents were relatively upright, so they protested immediately. As a result, the woman killed her entire family in the middle of the night. Gyurin was lucky enough to escape, and after hiding, she began to think of ways to take revenge. In the past 7 days, the port town has undergone many changes, and she couldn't bear it anymore, planning to sneak in to see what was going on, but she was discovered. Probably that's it. Revenge, huh? Sarutobi Ryo nodded. "Follow me." Signaling her to follow, Gyurin didn't understand, but slowly got up and followed Sarutobi Ryo and Yamanaka K. When they entered a room on the side of the manor, Sarutobi Ryo opened the door. A woman was lying on the bed, and that woman, covered in jewels, was Guren's enemy and also the former Guardian Ninja 12. According to Yamanaka K, after the incident, the Konoha high-level contacted the Fire Daimyo. The Fire Daimyo immediately removed her from her position that night and announced happily that a replacement could be selected from a Konoha ninja. Let's not talk about this gesture of goodwill. Just this action is one of the butterfly effects caused by Sarutobi Ryo's transmigrator identity. You must know that the Guardian Ninja 12 were all wild ninjas. This has been the case since the establishment of Konoha. The first Guardian Ninja 12 with the identity of a Konoha ninja will have to wait until many years later, when Asuma grows up and joins it in the original story. History has been changed. Because of Sarutobi Ryo's participation, the direction of the ninja world is increasingly heading in an unpredictable direction. Enemies are extremely jealous when they meet. Guren's face instantly showed an extremely hateful expression. Her blood rushing to her head, she was about to rush over, but Yamanaka K stopped her. Look carefully. Yamanaka K signaled Guren to check the woman's condition. As she probed, Guren slowly calmed down. What's wrong with her? The woman, with her eyes open, staring at the ceiling, lay motionless on the bed. Apart from breathing, there seemed to be no difference from a dead person. This guy has already become an idiot, Yamanaka K said regretfully. The enemy you are looking for has become an idiot. The Yamanaka clan's secret technique, which drills into the brain too violently, is like this. Upon learning the truth, Guren knelt down on the ground with a thud, her eyes becoming very dazed. She wants revenge, but she doesn't want this kind of revenge. Your revenge can be considered to have been taken by someone on your behalf. Yamanaka K touched the top of her head. My young master knocked her down with a few punches. 28. Section 28. It has to be said that Yamanaka K is very good at coaxing children. She embellished what she had seen with her own eyes, weaving it into a passionate story to describe to Kurinai. Kurinai is just a kind and innocent child. How could she understand? She was immediately fooled by the evil older sister, stunned. By the time she finished listening to the story of Sarutobi Ryo shining with justice, angrily beating the evil Guardian Ninja 12, a female ninja, she walked over and immediately knelt down in front of Sarutobi Ryo. The kindness is hard to repay. I can only repay it by working like a cow or a horse. Oh no, I can only repay the revenge by serving my young master. Yamanaka K sighed, looking gratified. Sarutobi Ryo glared at Yamanaka K, then looked at Kurinai. You know fire release, what else? Kurinai looked up, somewhat blank. Besides fire release, there's nothing else. Sarutobi Ryo was silent, just as the atmosphere became unusually stiff. Sarutobi Ryo spoke again. My goal is to become Hokage, to change Konoha, to change this ninja world. Simply put, Sarutobi Ryo's eyes were burning, revealing an unimaginable divine light. I want to make this world a better place, so that tragedies like your parents being killed by villains no longer happen. Are you willing to help me realize that future? Lord, I am willing. Kurinai nodded firmly, willing to fight for that beautiful future. Sometimes there is no need for overly flowery words. Just treat each other with sincerity and accurately state each other's thoughts and purposes. Sarutobi Ryo, very good. From today on, you are my companion. After Yamanaka K sent someone to bathe, feed, and change Kurinai's clothes, she returned to the hall. Young master, are you not going to let her join Konoha? Konoha is a place that eats people without spitting out bones. If a child like her goes in, there won't even be any scraps left. Even a strong person like Hatake Sakomo was schemed against by the higher-ups of Konoha, let alone an outsider child. Kurinai, who is not from the local area, will likely be recruited by Danzo into Root, like Kabuto, and then walk towards darkness all the way. So, just let her grow up here. The local gang, as a base, is also a shelter where Kurinai can slowly grow. During this period, if he has time, he will also regularly guide her cultivation. All right, I'm going to take a bath and rest. Sarutobi Ryo got up thinking about Kurenai's abilities. She only knows fire release now. Kurenai, in the original work, has the crystal release Kekkei Genkai. Crystal release is a fusion of fire release and earth release. I'm looking forward to it, Sarutobi Ryo thought. He is very much looking forward to Kurenai growing up and fusing with crystal release one day. Her talent is not just being chosen by Orochimaru as one of the reincarnation vessels. Being able to manually fuse crystal release is her greatest value. During this period, Kurenai can gradually grow and slowly help him manage the transportation company here, and eventually become a spokesperson or even on the surface, the boss of this transportation company. Chapter 33. Giving Hyuga Ruri a seed of hope in the evening, Ruri came back. She didn't seem to have bought anything, probably just stayed outside for a while, maybe just enjoying the sea breeze. As soon as she entered the door, she saw Kurenai sitting cross-legged on a chair, diligently extracting chakra. The unfamiliar face made Ruri blink. "Ruri, let me introduce you." Yamanaka walked over with the dishes and began to explain the situation. "Ruri-sama," Kurenai greeted timidly, but the latter didn't say a word. "Kurenai, don't mind, Ruri is just like that. Her background is even worse than yours." Yamanaka waved her hand. "Ruri, soon." Sarutobi Ryo walked over from the next bedroom. After resting well, Sarutobi Ryo became radiant again. "Ruri, you're here. Thank you for your hard work these past few days." Hyuga Ruri nodded slightly. The expressionless girl's performance made Kurenai very curious. "Dinner's ready." As Yamanaka brought up the last dish, the dinner party officially began. At the dinner table, Sarutobi Ryo told Kurenai about the future arrangements. These things are also recorded on the scroll to prevent her from forgetting. And the first ninjutsu that Sarutobi Ryo taught her was the B-rank shadow clone technique. Kurenai is indeed young, and her chakra reserves are not much, but it is still possible to create a shadow clone at this age. One shadow clone can increase life efficiency by 1 time, which is the strongest cultivation cheat. The key is, ordinary ninjas can also adapt without the need for bloodline. The only requirement is B-level learning qualifications, because the shadow clone technique is a B-rank ninjutsu. And with Kurenai's ability to fuse crystal release in the original work, it is not difficult to learn this shadow clone technique with only 1 seal. "Lord, don't worry. I will work hard to complete every requirement." Looking at Kurenai's serious little face, Sarutobi Ryo was also very relieved. In the original work, Kurenai was captured by Orochimaru, helped the evildoer, and became a veritable tool person. But she is essentially a kind person. Now he has given her the right belonging and the right environment. Her life has completely changed from this moment on. Turning his gaze, Sarutobi Ryo looked at Ruri, who was silent on the side. The expressionless, gloomy girl didn't seem to have changed much from the past. Inject the will of fire into Hyuga Ruri. Current progress, 1%. After all, something has changed. Sarutobi Ryo's eyes lit up. Perhaps it was because of a series of operations here, and even unintentionally avenged Kurenai and settled her down. So a slight change quietly occurred in Hyuga Ruri's heart. Even if it's only 1%, Sarutobi Ryo believes that one day she can show a smile and ultimately change her destiny. There are too many injustices in this world. So what? Step by step, he will eventually let the true will of fire spread throughout the entire ninja world. In the dark night, the dock was flickering with lights and the waves were lapping. The full cargo was loaded into the cabin. Of course, the boxes for loading the goods are boxes, but there is no real goods inside. Originally, Sarutobi Ryo didn't intend to actually trade with the people of Kirigakure. "Young Master Ryo, that's the situation." Nanoyu stood at the bow of the ship, adjusted her glasses, and explained the situation to Sarutobi Ryo. There are currently no signs of Blood Mist Village ninjas active in the Land of Waves, so they shouldn't know about the changes that have taken place in the port town. The hunting operation can be carried out. Lord Danzo said, "This will be young Master Ryo's first mission after joining the Umbu." Nanoyu said seriously. This means that Sarutobi Ryo has become an official member of the Umbu. Very good. Then let's set off. Soon, the female ninja of the Guardian Ninja 12 walked out of the cabin. She raised her head and stared at everyone with an arrogant look. The familiar face made the root ninjas involuntarily tense up, until she suddenly laughed. How is it, young master? Is my imitation okay? The enemy of the past has now been controlled by Yamanaka K. Using the Yamanaka clan's secret technique, mind-body switch technique, to transfer the spirit to this body can be mistaken for real. No one could see the flaws. Hearing this laughter, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Nanoyu's eyes flickered, and she couldn't help but sigh that the Yamanaka clan's mental secret technique was so convenient. With just one technique, they can complete intelligence work that others cannot do. As expected of Mr. Haichi's cousin. Then action. Sarutobi Ryo waved his hand, and the sailors immediately set sail and headed towards the sea. The stars are all over the sky, and the waves are swaying. 29. Section 29. The large ship, loaded with empty boxes, sailed towards the land of waves. As the sky began to brighten, the ship, which had been sailing for half the night, smoothly arrived at the land of waves. The land of waves is a country shrouded in a light mist. Above the sea, the sun rose, gently penetrating the mist and coating the ship in a layer of orange light. Yamanaka K was sitting in the ship's cabin at this moment. Hinata, Ruri guarded her side. Yamanaka K, having once again used her mental secret technique to control the female ninja's body, slowly opened her eyes. When she walked out of the cabin, the coastline of the land of waves was already very clear before her eyes. On Sarutobi Ryo's side, he had already put on some makeup, adding fake beards, hair, and other props. He looked like a burly gangster. Sarutobi Ryo, that is, the land of waves. The land of waves is the location of the famous incident in the original story. Kakashi, Zabuza, and Team 7 had a fierce battle here. In this era, Kato had not yet occupied it, so the land of waves was not as poor as it was in the original story. The people lived and worked in peace and contentment, minding their own business, and their lives were quite prosperous. And one of the goals Sarutobi Ryo gave to Kurinai was to have her unify the shipping industry of the land of waves in the future. After the destruction of the land of whirlpools, the land of waves became an important port transit center. Many ships pass through here every day, transporting goods. So, this is a country with great potential for profit. As long as a large amount of money and profit sharing are negotiated with the daimyo of the land of waves, one can run rampant here. Of course, Sarutobi Ryo's purpose is to make money and improve local development, not to act arbitrarily. This is different from Kato and the 12 female ninja. We've arrived. Standing at the bow of the ship was none other than the Ringo Amuri of the 7 ninja swordsmen. Chapter 34. Ringo Amuri Danger. Hith. Ringo Amuri gripped the rope beside the mast with one hand, full of spirit. Shark-like teeth revealed the characteristics of a hidden mist ninja. The rabbit hairstyle pointing towards the sky and the short stature were very characteristic of her personality. From the moment she appeared, Sarutobi Ryo perked up and constantly scanned the scene with his eyes. Multiple thermal imaging outlines appeared in his right eye's vision. As footsteps sounded, the hidden mist ninjas began to gather at the bow of the ship, coming behind Ringo Amuri. The land of waves is a neutral country, so no one would say anything about the hidden mist ninjas appearing here. And because it was early morning, there were not many people around, and with a light mist, this became a quiet trading place. A seemingly ordinary scene, but it aroused Sarutobi Ryo's vigilance, because she has become weaker. In his right eye's vision, Ringo Amuri no longer radiated the infinite light and heat she had when they first met. At this time, her chakra radiation state had become weak, like a sun about to be extinguished. Not only that, Yamanaka K also noticed Ringo Amuri's changes. Where the twins soared behind this guy. Lightning Blade Kiba, one of the 7 swords of the hidden mist the 7 ninja swordsmen are all together with their swords. Ringo Aomuri had lost her sword at this time. Why was that? A series of silvery laughter rang out, and Yamanaka K, imitating the mannerisms of the body's original owner, walked over. Every move and every action was no different from the original body. This fully demonstrated Yamanaka K's talent. She was always very enthusiastic about things that leaned towards fun or negativity. Ringo Aomuri also stepped down from the ship, arriving on the wooden bridge of the pier. The wooden planks under her feet made a crackling sound, and the faint sound of the waves lapping could be heard clearly. Different from Yamanaka K, who was unaware of the plot, Sarutobi Ryo directly guessed what had happened to Ringo Aomuri. That guy. When Sarutobi Ryo saw the guy with the dark green hair and thick lips closely following behind Ringo Aomuri, everything became clear. Kirigane Raiga. This hidden mist jonin, with bandages wrapped around his neck, was named Kirigane Raiga. In the original story, Kirigane Raiga is the next user of the Lightning Blade Kiba, which means Ringo Aomuri is already critically ill. Although he tried to hide it, his slightly pale face was still seen by Sarutobi Ryo, who zoomed in and observed through his right eye's vision. The right eye, which can function as a telescope and magnifying glass, is extremely useful when analyzing these situations. Ringo Aomuri is a genius girl who contracted a serious illness in the original story. And the ninjas in the Bloody Mist will not have a good end. When they become weak, others will follow the scent of blood and cum, like bloodthirsty sharks swarming and tearing their flesh. Ringo Aomuri is sick, so someone took advantage of her illness to take her life. Known as a genius girl, who has made various contributions to the hidden mist throughout her life, the final outcome is to be betrayed and then killed. This is the way of survival for ninjas in the Bloody Mist. Perhaps in their opinion, this is normal. After all, everyone has come this way. But in Sarutobi Ryo's view, it is a typical case of social Darwinism, lacking the basics of being human. In addition, Ringo Aomuri, as a meritorious official in the Bloody Mist, was ultimately killed by her own people. This is so similar to Hatake Sakumo. Malice is something that cannot be concealed. Kirigane Raiga and these people, Sarutobi Ryo was very familiar with that cannibalistic look in their eyes, because Sarutobi Ryo had seen too many of those eyes, which means Kirigane Raiga and even the entire group of hidden mist ninjas are planning to kill Ringo Aomuri in this transaction. In Sarutobi Ryo's right eye vision, Ringo Aomuri's thermal image was continuing to dim little by little. Young Master Ryo. Nonoyu was also in the crowd. She was standing behind Sarutobi Ryo at this time. As a very powerful medical ninja, Nonoyu could judge the other person's health through their facial features. She wanted to tell Sarutobi Ryo about Ringo Aomuri's abnormality, but she didn't know how to speak. On the one hand, the other party was eyeing them covetously, and all the hidden mist ninjas were watching this side. If there was any slight movement, they would probably riot. On the other hand, Nonoyu hesitated in her heart. Over the past week, she had seen Sarutobi Ryo's decisive methods. The gangs were integrated into a regular shipping company, and those with bad records were killed. The smoky atmosphere of the entire port town was dispelled in just 7 days. More job opportunities also emerged as a result, and the people were moving towards a better future. Different from the traditional Fire Second Generation or even the previous generation, in her impression. This young master from a noble background seemed very special. He could empathize with the grassroots, which was something that other power holders did not have. Over these days, she had greatly changed her impression of young Master Ryo. So, tasks and various arrangements had begun to be led by him. Subsequently, Nonoyu noticed the change in Sarutobi Ryo's eyes. Young Master Ryo seems to already have a plan. Just when Nonoyu thought that Sarutobi Ryo would choose to sneak attack Ringo Aomuri, capturing the leader first, Sarutobi Ryo's order to Yamanaka K surprised everyone. Save her. Her mind was questioning, but her body had already moved. The tacit understanding from childhood to adulthood allowed Sarutobi Ryo and Yamanaka-kei to completely trust each other. So, facing Sarutobi Ryo's instructions, Yamanaka-kei didn't delay for even a second, directly drew her katana and rushed towards Ringo Aimyuri. Kurigane Raiga, standing behind Ringo Aimyuri, was first puzzled. Then he grinned. If he could use someone else's hand to kill Ringo Aimyuri, that would be the best thing, without dirtying his own hands, just as he thought that the katana would pierce Ringo Aimyuri's chest. Swish! The katana turned around and slashed fiercely at him. Section 30 as a colleague of Ringo Urue and a jonin of Kirigakure, as well as a candidate for the Thunder Sword Fong, Kurisuke Raiga's strength is naturally not weak. He abruptly sidestepped, avoiding the chop. In the next second, Sarutobi Ryo, who had blasted the wooden plank under his feet, had already plunged into the enemy ranks. Most ninjas know some ninjutsu, and most conventional ninjutsu require creating distance to cast. Therefore, approaching directly with taijutsu and engaging in melee combat often becomes the most effective choice, provided that this person is proficient in taijutsu. And, coincidentally, Sarutobi Ryo excels at it. Rock impact. The moment he landed, Sarutobi Ryo explosively unleashed his full strength, using the momentum of his rush. How strong was Sarutobi Ryo's physical strength at this moment? After layering Steel Release, Bloodline Limit, it was equivalent to covering the fist with a layer of Steel Release Chakra Field. This was no different from wrapping the fist in a metal construct. Thus, after one punch, the enemy's head exploded like a watermelon with a bang. Splattered red and white matter sprayed out in a fan-shaped area. By the time Sarutobi Ryo completed the kill, everyone present had reacted. Attack! Take them down! The ninjas in the bloody mist revealed ferocious expressions, shouting and attacking. Go! Yamanaka-kei, taking the lead, grabbed Ringo Urue with one hand and leaped backward. He retreated rapidly, carrying her with him. After the initial surprise, Kurisuke Raiga's expression changed, and he finally cursed at Ringo Urue, who also looked dumbfounded. Ringo Urue, you by siege. Yufu King betrayed Kirigakure. Chapter 35. Rescuing the female villain is common since Kurisuke Raiga mistakenly believed that Ringo Urue had defected to the enemy. A strange misunderstanding arose. But for Sarutobi Ryo, this was not the focus. Right hand clenched, smashing the enemy's head. The left hand drew a kunai, and an imperceptible afterimage flashed, and a shrill cutting sound could even be heard. Chi! Blood flowers bloomed on the neck. In just an instant, Sarutobi Ryo had successively eliminated two enemies. His swordsmanship was inherited from Konoha's White Fang, Hatake Sakumo. Sarutobi Ryo's swordsmanship level was naturally guaranteed. Watching Sarutobi Ryo simultaneously perform swordsmanship and taijutsu, multitasking, Nono and the others couldn't help but click their tongues in amazement. In everyone's hearts, Sarutobi Ryo's strength became increasingly unfathomable. And the next second, with a buzzing sound, transparent chakra flowed on the kunai. The kunai, with an unstoppable momentum, cut off the enemy's slender katana and then directly severed the enemy's face. The opponent leaned back abruptly, a deep bloodstain appearing from the chin to the bridge of the nose to the top of the head. This time, the faces of all the enemies turned ugly. Wind release. Chakra flow. Kirigakure, represented by the 7 ninja swordsmen, with the 7 swords as their symbol. Ninjas are trained to use various knives and sharp weapons during their time at the Ninja Academy. Among the 5 major attributes, wind release has one of the highest damage outputs. The sharpest cut brings the most terrifying absolute output. Without mastering chakra flow, it would be impossible to resist it with ordinary weapons. An ordinary chakra flow, over time, would also be unable to compete with the sharp wind release flow. However, human power is ultimately limited. Many times, quantity can make up for the difference in quality, especially since the current situation is not 1v1, but a group of ninjas from the Bloody Mist facing a small number of Konoha ninjas. The Root ninjas, having removed their disguises, threw shurikens and kunai and began to cover Yamanaka-Kei's escape. As for their level, Sarutobi Ryo had seen a week ago. Before Danzo intends to send better experts to support. This team-scale battle is not in our favor. After all, the Umbu are almost always small-scale operations, and it is impossible to form a large team for a flat push. That is the job of the regular army. Go! Surrounded by the enemies, Sarutobi Ryo blasted the wooden bridge under his feet. The enemies fell into the water. Taking advantage of this gap, Sarutobi Ryo jumped back with the force of the reaction. Running away to the sea was impossible. Therefore, land became the only option. The Land of Waves is an island nation, but it also has many forested areas where they can hide themselves. Thus, everyone quickly landed and began to head towards the jungle. Enraged, Kurisuke Raiga vented his anger on the female ninja controlled by Yamanaka-Kei. He released the scroll and took out the Thunder Sword, pointing it at the sky. Yamanaka-Kei, with her excellent sixth sense, realized the danger and immediately released the mental secret technique, allowing her mind to return to her body. Rumble. Thunder echoed in the sky. A bolt of lightning struck down, hitting this body. Thump. The latter immediately fell to the ground, a wisp of green smoke rising from her body. Kurisuke Raiga was stunned again. Although this move could instantly kill a Chunin, the opponent had the strength of a Jonin and also had the steel release bloodline limit, so she shouldn't have died so easily. At most, she should have been slightly injured, gritted her teeth, and been able to run away. What's going on? While he was confused, Sarutobi Ryo and the others had quickly retreated into the forest. Chase! Kurisuke Raiga tied up the 12 Guardian Ninja with ropes, intending to interrogate them for information later, and issued an order to his subordinates to pursue. In the forest, the battle continued. Hyuga, who possessed the Byakugan, would play a huge role at this moment. The forest was an obstacle, but it was cover for Hyuga. The Byakugan could see through the surrounding area with a limit of 50 meters in all directions. In this state, although the Byakugan lost its 10-kilometer straight-line vision limit, it gained an all-round field of view. Thus, Hyuga suddenly rushed out from behind a tree, her slender arm raised, her fingers connected. As the blue chakra bloomed, the enemy died in response. On the other side, Sarutobi Ryo was even more at ease. The thermal imaging ability of his right eye had become more precise after continuous use in the past week of training. Previously, he could only see a slightly clear human outline at close range. At this time, he was already able to clearly capture the complete human form. Those figures leaping through the forest were so clear. Left hand using wind release chakra flow, right hand steel release taijutsu. Sarutobi Ryo struck left and right, even deliberately enduring the enemy's attacks, luring the enemy to trade injuries for injuries. But they didn't know that he possessed the steel release ability. Thus, the result was that Sarutobi Ryo killed the enemy, and he himself, through the damage reduction of steel release, only left small wounds. Why did you save me? Ringo Urue ran continuously, but soon coughed. Between her fingers, large patches of bright red blood began to seep out. Don't talk. Nono frowned tightly. The other party's problem was more serious than it appeared. So, she gave Yamanaka-Kei a look. Yamanaka-Kei immediately carried Ringo Urue on her back. My young master told me to save you, so I saved you. I see. 31. Section 31 lying on Yamanaka Ino's back. Ringo Amiri immediately understood everything. It's a Yamanaka clan's secret mental technique. That woman is probably finished. Fall back. Just then a shout rang out. After abandoning several corpses, the Hidden Mist Ninja began to sound a retreat. The Hidden Mist Ninja, who lacked any sense of teamwork, faced Sarutobi Ryo and Hyuga, who possessed an absolute advantage in this forest environment. The ultimate outcome was being taken down one by one. Therefore, long-term planning became the new command choice. The Hidden Mist Ninja's team began to shrink. Like sharks, they clung to the back of the team, waiting for an opportunity to strike a fatal blow. Thus, both teams slowed their pace, but still couldn't break the distance. After reuniting with the team, Sarutobi Ryo looked to his side. Ruri, the enemy, still has 30 people. The Byakugan girl spoke indifferently. A team of 40, even with 10 deaths, was still an astonishingly large force. You should know that in the original story, when Noera Rin was kidnapped, the Three Tails was sealed into her, and Obito was lured into darkness. The Hidden Mist only dispatched 50 elite fighters. Clearly, their intentions were not what they seemed. Ringo Amuri's illness had given the Hidden Mist higher-ups the idea of changing leadership. They planned to make Black Zetsu Raiga the next successor, and they were thinking of finding an opportunity to kill Ringo Amuri. Some might wonder why the Hidden Mist higher-ups didn't just kill Ringo Amuri directly, but instead resorted to such roundabout methods. In fact, the answer is very simple. It's the same old saying. They wanted to devour people, but they pretended to be virtuous and didn't dare to do it openly. Chapter 36. Five-Sealed Barrier. After entrusting Ruri with her superior vision to monitor the enemy's movements at all times, Sarutobi Ryo walked over. Ringo Amuri was placed on the grass, and Nono was treating her. As the yang released chakra of medical ninjutsu entered the body and the results were fed back, the situation was much worse than Nono had imagined. What's wrong with her? Sarutobi Ryo asked. It's not a terminal illness. Nono shook her head. Betrayal was commonplace. However, their cannibalism also had rules, and they had to operate according to the cannibalistic rules set by the Third Mizukage. Otherwise, it would be a crime of rebellion. In such an environment, being watched at all times, I'm afraid. That's why she kept delaying until she was critically ill. If Ringo Amuri formed factions or was a hidden mist high-ranking person, it would be fine. But according to the information, Ringo Amuri had always been alone. What happens to someone who fights alone? Just look at Hitaki Sakomo. Yeah, Sarutobi Ryo nodded. Miss Nono, if possible, please heal her. Nono was slightly stunned, and then thought of something. Young Master Ryo, are you planning to use the Hidden Mist's internal strife? Yamanaka Ino. Unlike Yamanaka Ino, who didn't know much about the Hidden Mist, Sarutobi Ryo and Nono both understood what this meant. One of the Hidden Mist's rules: if the previous 7 ninja swordsmen is not dead, the next successor must kill him in order to truly inherit the title of 7 ninja swordsmen. Nono thought that Sarutobi Ryo wanted to use Ringo Amuri as bait to lure the enemy into internal strife. Once Ringo Amuri was healed, she and Black Zetsu Raiga would inevitably fight to the death. Because for Ringo Amuri, taking back the sword was something she had to do. And for Black Zetsu Raiga, killing Ringo Amuri was the only way to sit in the position of the next 7 ninja swordsmen. They would fight like dogs and we would reap the benefits. Sarutobi Ryo didn't explain Nono's statement. It's not easy to say it openly at the moment, because I can't stand the persecution of good people, so I want to change the tragedy and save this woman. The crime of colluding with the enemy is not small. Also, Sarutobi Ryo glanced at the weak Ringo Amuri. The system prompt was very clear. Mission objective: inject Ringo Amuri with the will of fire. Mission reward: ice release possibility. How long will it take to heal her? Sarutobi Ryo asked directly. At least 3 days, I guess. Nono hesitated for a moment and gave an estimated time. But even if she's initially healed by then, her combat power will probably still be very weak. Speaking of this, she glanced at the other side of the forest again. The enemy was watching intently, ready to rush over at any time. Once Black Zetsu Raiga reacted, they would have to move and the treatment would be delayed. Their target is Ringo Amuri, so let your people leave here, Sarutobi Ryo casually said to Nono. On the surface, it was to prevent Root's people from dying in vain. In reality, the intention was to divert Root's people in order to do certain things. Withdraw separately. Nono nodded, without any objection. As for our side, I will use a barrier to surround this place. Sarutobi Ryo took out 5 talismans. Before Black Zetsu Raiga could react, he would be able to set up the barrier. At that time, Relying on the barrier's defensive power, it would be enough to hold out for a long time. Seeing these 5 talismans, Nono's eyes lit up. 5-seal barrier. On the other side, Black Zetsu Raiga carried the prisoner and slowly reunited with his subordinates. After hearing the report from his subordinates, Black Zetsu Raiga nodded. In the forest, he stared into the distance, his gaze seeming to penetrate everything. Soon, Black Zetsu Raiga's body began to tremble. This strange behavior immediately caused the others to quietly retreat. Because, woo, Black Zetsu Raiga suddenly became tearful, and tears suddenly flowed from his eyes. Ringo Yuri, rest assured, I will hold a grand funeral for you. As he said that, Black Zetsu Raiga suddenly shrugged his shoulders and chuckled. Everyone watched this scene of crying and laughing, with different expressions. This was the bloody mist. This was the village hidden in the mist. Under the third Mizukige's high-pressure policies, the birth of lunatics and perverts was not uncommon. For example, the Kagaya clan were all combat lunatics. There were many other ninja whose situations were similar to Black Zetsu Raiga's. Raiga-sama, someone from Konoha, has begun to retreat. At this time, a subordinate in charge of reconnaissance came to report. After learning that Ringo Yuri was staying in place, Black Zetsu Raiga waved his hand, not caring about the escape of small fries. Keep an eye on Ringo Yuri. Let me interrogate this prisoner first. Several figures were running quickly through the forest. Among them were Roots Ninja, as well as Sarutobi Ryo's shadow clones. 5 shadow clones each held a talisman and ran in 5 directions of the forest. Sarutobi Ryo himself sat cross-legged on the ground, sensing the positions of the 5 talismans. After confirming that the 5 shadow clones had reached their respective positions, Sarutobi Ryo began to cast the spell. The 5 shadow clones simultaneously noticed the changes in the chakra flow of the talismans in their hands. Immediately, they simultaneously reached out and stuck the talismans in the most tricky and inconspicuous places they could find. Barrier. Activate. Buzz. Invisible chakra fluctuations swept across the scene. This scene was immediately noticed by the Hidden Mist sensory ninja. After all, the chakra changes caused by the activation of the barrier were an extremely obvious sign. 5-seal barrier? Black Zetsu Raiga frowned and looked deep into the forest. White ripples visibly rippled out and eventually formed a transparent, invisible barrier. The annihilation of the land of whirlpools back then was largely due to the Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques and barrier techniques being quite disgusting. Because barriers and seals were things with special functions, they were usually used to overcome strength with weakness. And often, there was no good way to deal with them. One could only wait for the barrier to disappear on its own, or spend 10 times, or even dozens of times the power to forcefully break it, which was obviously not worth the loss. Considering this, Cloud Hidden and Hidden Mist tacitly annihilated the Uzumaki clan in the last Great War. 32. Section 32. Seeing this familiar barrier, Black Zetsu Raiga, along with unpleasant memories, immediately surfaced in his mind, causing him to go berserk. Finding 5 talismans wasn't that simple. Unless one possessed the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan, a quick search was impossible. Otherwise, spending a great deal of manpower and resources to find 5 talismans would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. With his angry roar, a single strike sent the head of one of the Guardian Ninja 12 flying. Fresh blood spurted everywhere, but the surrounding Hidden Mist ninjas maintained calm expressions, accustomed to it. Surround them all. Let's see how many days they can last. Chapter 37. Night Raid on Ringo Yurue. Buzz. Hyuga Ruri stretched out her hand and poked at the space in front of her. The empty air, where nothing existed, suddenly rippled like water. This layer of water ripples was the wall of the 5-seal barrier, also the defense of the jutsu. In the original Gaara retrieval arc, Pain used this technique. Even Sakura's monstrous strength could only leave small ripples on it. In the end, Kakashi and the others, relying on Niji's Byakugan and a walkie-talkie carried by Guy, simultaneously revealed the 5 talismans. thus undoing the operation of this jutsu. Young Master is truly amazing. He has solutions for any situation. Yamanaka K sincerely praised his young master's excellence. The talent of a ninjutsu scholar allowed Sarutobi Ryo to cast any type of jutsu. His nonchalant confidence was truly amazing. And as they spent more and more time together, Nanoyu's attitude towards Sarutobi Ryo slowly underwent more changes. Earth Release. After recalling the chakra from his 5 shadow clones, Sarutobi Ryo ate a few soldier pills to replenish his stamina and chakra, then began forming hand seals. With a rumbling sound, the earth and rocks on the ground rose or sank. Clearly, Sarutobi Ryo intended to directly create an artificial building here. The forest shook, and birds soared into the sky. The 30 hidden mist ninjas guarding the perimeter widened their eyes, each watching the changes within the barrier. Soon, a row of artificial earth release houses appeared on the spot. Move into the house. Sarutobi Ryo raised his hand to signal, then picked up Ringo Yurue and brought her into the house. Nanoyu entered the house, looked at the bed made of rocks and earth, and thought, "It's so convenient to know earth release. This is truly an essential jutsu for home and travel." In fact, Orochimaru, who built structures everywhere in the original story, also used earth release. His countless hideouts throughout the ninja world were not excavated by manpower, because ninjas don't have that much free time to engage in construction work. The Hidden Mist Village is at least 4 days away by sea, and if we encounter storms or waves, the time will be greatly extended. Sarutobi Ryo calculated the time. Nanoya needed at most 3 days for treatment. So even if there were reinforcements from the Hidden Mist, they wouldn't be able to arrive in time. Crossing the ocean was not that simple. Just then, raindrops fell from the sky. The rainy season had arrived. As a small island nation at sea, the land of waves was often subjected to rain. The sound of rushing water descended into the forest. The Hidden Mist ninjas took out raincoats, glaring at the earthen house within the barrier. Ninjas can lie dormant for 3 days and 3 nights without eating or drinking, and still have the strength to fight. They can also survive in difficult environments. But no one would deliberately torture themselves. Inside the house, Sarutobi Ryo, who had collected branches in advance, lit a bonfire. Yamanaka K set up a pot, and mushrooms and wild vegetables from the forest were gathered to make a delicious soup. The faint smell of smoke and the aroma of food wafted through the forest, making the enemies involuntarily start to salivate. And Sarutobi Ryo, sitting around the bonfire and eating hot pot, had an exceptionally calm expression. In comparison, Nanoyu was a little worried. "Ryo-sama, they have already surrounded this place. Even if I heal her in 3 days, I'm afraid we can only escape. Yurue's recovery takes time. There are 30 people on the other side. Even Yurue, in her prime, might not be able to escape the pursuit. A large number of people can really cause qualitative change. What's more, Black Zetsuraiga is holding one of the 7 swords, Lightning Blade Fawn. Without her swords, Ringo Yurue's strength would plummet, making it impossible for her to be a match for Black Zetsuraiga. Escape? Sarutobi Ryo raised his eyes and looked at the root girl with a great figure. "You got one thing wrong. Whether it's steel release or the taijutsu that Orochimaru gave me. I'm only in the initial stages of training. There's still a lot of room for improvement. Give me 3 days. I will become stronger. By then, I'll go out and kill them all." Sarutobi Ryo's eyes were burning, radiating an unimaginable divine light. "Ruri, K, you two should also train well during these 3 days. The 2 of them would only need to be responsible for protecting Nanoyu and Ringo Yurue at that time." And soon, Sarutobi Ryo's training began. Nanoyu continued to treat Ringo Yurue. Yamanaka K and Hyuga went to their respective houses. So inside the house, Sarutobi Ryo created 10 shadow clones and began to practice steel release, Kekiai Genkai again. The main body, after eating and drinking, began to practice taijutsu. "Hey, isn't anyone going to ask for my opinion?" Ringo Yurue, lying on the bed, expressed, "Hey, there's still someone here. We will ask you. Sarutobi Ryo turned his head to look. The look brewing in his black eyes made Ringo Yurue's scalp tingle. What kind of look was that? Ringo Yurue didn't know what she was about to encounter. Next, Sarutobi Ryo devoted all his energy to training. Shadow clones practiced ninjutsu, and the main body practiced taijutsu. Ninjutsu and taijutsu were practiced at the same time. Explosions continued to echo in the forest. Sarutobi Ryo practiced taijutsu outside as if no one else was around. When it was evening, Sarutobi Ryo no longer needed the huge leaves above his head as a rain shelter. The rain really fell on Sarutobi Ryo's body, but was blocked by an invisible steel release field. Bang! A punch was thrown. The strength and chakra surged throughout his body. Combining taijutsu and steel release made the power even more extraordinary. After a punch, all the raindrops around him were shaken away from the surface of his body. At that moment, Sarutobi Ryo's whole body was as dry as new, as if he hadn't been rained on. Time passed, in the blink of an eye, from day to night. When it was completely dark, Sarutobi Ryo temporarily stopped training. After eating dinner again, Sarutobi Ryo asked Nanoyu about the treatment. 10 shadow clones sat in Ringo Yurue's room all day, practicing while monitoring her every move. After learning that the situation had greatly improved, Sarutobi Ryo nodded and left. After another round of training, Sarutobi Ryo digested the food and went to rest. Hyugaruri, Yamanaka-ke, and Nanoyu also fell into a deep sleep. Everything became quiet, with only the continuous flow of drizzle. Just like that, I don't know how long it has been. The night sky was suddenly struck by a thunderclap. The thunder light from outside the window illuminated Ringo Yurei, who opened her eyes, not only disturbed by the thunder, but also because of the uninvited guest. "You're here?" The patient lying on the bed tilted her head towards the door. The rain-soaked night was filled with thunder and lightning, and a dark figure stood at the entrance, like a god of death. And this figure was Sarutobi Ryo. Inside the house, the only shadow clone responsible for guarding Ringo, Yurei, automatically dispelled, turning into a cloud of smoke. Sarutobi Ryo's main body slowly walked in, and then casually closed the stone door. The room was completely plunged into darkness. Ringo Yurei. Darkness could not block Sarutobi Ryo's vision. Everything was so clear in his right eye's field of vision. A certain thought materialized into mental energy, or rather, the human body's magnetic field, swept towards the other party. Since killing intent can be perceived by others, then strong thoughts can also be. Ringo Yurei didn't know what she was about to encounter. All she knew was that the dangerous signal made goosebumps appear on her body. And as Sarutobi Ryo approached, her heart couldn't help but beat violently. Chapter 38. Injecting the will of fire into Ringo Yurei. Okay, I can tell you what I know. Ringo Yurue's tone feigned ease. But with darkness all around and nothing to see, she couldn't help but feel nervous. 33. Section 33, their late-night arrival, is undoubtedly to get information about Kirigakure for me. Saving me is probably for the same reason. After all, the name 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist is quite intimidating. As one of the 7 swordsmen, I know quite a bit of valuable information. As for betraying my village, in a hellhole like the Bloody Mist, would anyone truly pledge their undying loyalty? There probably are. There are too many blindly loyal fools in the Bloody Mist. They're being played like puppets by that old codger, the third Mizukage. Ringo Amuri's mind raced, thinking about all sorts of things. What do you want to know? Where should I start? However, Sarutobi Ryo didn't care what she said at all, because it was time to test a certain function of the system. In the darkness, Ringo Amuri only felt her scalp tingle. The other party's aura was coming from above her. Lying on the bed, she was unable to move, her body weakened from the treatment. This was the time she should be resting properly. Outside, it was pouring rain with thunder. If Kurisuke Raiga had mastered the Thunder Sword Kiba, he could naturally try to summon lightning strikes in this weather to break the barrier faster. But in fact, having just obtained the Thunder Sword, he couldn't fully unleash its power. So, in 3 days, it won't just be you who gets stronger. That Kurisuke Raiga guy is definitely familiarizing himself with the use of the Thunder Sword as well. At this point, Sarutobi Ryo finally responded, "You don't need to worry about that. I'll only ask you one thing. Even if you kill Kurisuke Raiga, you won't return to the village, right?" Ringo Amiri fell silent. Her appearance was exceptionally clear in Sarutobi Ryo's right eye's vision. Even darkness couldn't stop Sarutobi Ryo from seeing. With the use of his right eye, its functions were being expanded more and more. The ones that want to kill you are the Kirigakure higher-ups. They believe Kurisuke Raiga is the next heir to the Thunder Sword, so they set up a trap, sending 40 people over, ostensibly to help you complete the mission, but in reality, it's to ensure Kurisuke Raiga can successfully retrieve the Thunder Sword Kiba. Sarutobi Ryo's series of analysis made a trace of bitterness flash in Ringo Amiri's eyes. She had worked hard for Kirigakure her whole life. All the time was spent on training, performing tasks, scheming, and surviving. Fighting alone, an unimaginable loneliness. Really, I really want to have a love affair. Until now, Ringo Amiri, who had never dated a boyfriend, if there was any major regret in her life, or rather, the only regret, it was that she had never been in love, before Ringo Amiri could express her girlish sensibility. Sarutobi Ryo had already reached out and placed his 2 palms on either side of Ringo Amiri's head. As Sarutobi Ryo pulled towards the head of the bed, which was also in his direction, Ringo Amiri's head was pulled off the bed. It looked like her body below the neck was lying on the bed, with her head suspended in the air, held by 2 palms. What is this guy going to do? Ringo Amiri felt very uncomfortable being held by the head. This was a subconscious reaction. The ninjas in the Bloody Mist would keep their distance from others, like a lone wolf. No matter how hard she racked her brains, she couldn't figure out what Sarutobi Ryo was going to do next. "I have a good suggestion." Sarutobi Ryo spoke again, his voice already carrying a certain bewitchment. Just as Danzo had said, Sarutobi Ryo was an extremely pure person. At the same time, Sarutobi Ryo had light in his heart, but also darkness that Danzo had not yet been able to accurately see. Danzo only knew that the darkness in Sarutobi Ryo's heart was also very pure. But specifically, it was something Danzo didn't know for the time being. And at this moment, Sarutobi Ryo, who was one with darkness, finally erupted with the darkness in his heart. In fact, Sarutobi Ryo had never said that he was a good person, let alone a saint. Even so, it didn't prevent Sarutobi Ryo from still having a good side that he wanted to stick to. After all, people are originally a mixture of good and evil, just like the Gemini gold saying of 1 body and 2 sides. What suggestion? Ringo Amiri's face turned a few shades paler. What could she do when her head was being held? "I'll help you kill Kurisuke Raiga, and then I hope you can become my partner." Oh, Sarutobi Ryo's suggestion made Ringo Amiri regain the playfulness she had when they first met. At this moment, confidence, elegance, and a hint of wildness grew from her body. This was the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Sounds good, but what additional benefits are there to becoming your partner? Money, help in solving problems, a place to hide. Sarutobi Ryo said a lot of benefits. When Ringo Amiri heard that Sarutobi Ryo had unified the underworld of that small port town and taken control of that woman's industry, Ringo Amiri's eyes began to light up, or rather, her expression became a little strange. "You guys are a bit interesting. My wish is to become Hokage, as well as the strongest ninja, and ultimately change Konoha and the ninja world." Sarutobi Ryo spoke of his ambition. "As for why I saved you," Sarutobi Ryo paused, giving the other party time to digest. "Currently, we Konoha also have the same problem. My swordsmanship teacher, Konoha White Fang Hataki Sakomo, is encountering a situation similar to yours." Ringo Amiri's eyes widened suddenly. After the shock, she was filled with holy crap. "Your Konoha is really dark, even wanting to screw over a strong person like the Konoha White Fang." The name of Konoha White Fang was like thunder in the ears. The 7 ninja swordsmen were nothing in front of him. Ringo Aomuri had no doubt that any one of the 7 swordsmen, facing Konoha White Fang alone, would be instantly killed, because they were not on the same level at all. Such a strong person, even the legendary Sannin were blurred existences in front of him. Konoha actually wanted to give up? Time is running out. Sarutobi Ryo murmured. Kakashi should have already graduated at this time and was being led by Minato Namikaze. This indicated that the death date of Konoha White Fang was near. With my arrival in this world, many things will not develop as they did in the original work. It is likely that some things will happen earlier. So, I must plan ahead instead of rigidly sticking to the timeline of events. I must become stronger. Strength, power, money. Then control my own and others' lives, and change all kinds of tragedies. Change everything bad. Finally, illuminate the entire planet with the light of the will of fire. Then, Sarutobi Ryo lowered his head and looked at the shocked genius girl. In order to make our cooperation more pleasant, I need to add some small restraints. Steel release. In the darkness, the Sarutobi clan's summoning weapon, the powerful Vajra staff, slowly rose. Ringo Aomuri had not yet foreseen the arrival of danger. Then, the weapon was covered with a layer of steel release by Sarutobi Ryo. Holding Ringo Aomuri's head, Sarutobi Ryo attacked fiercely. Chapter 39. Animal Path. Ongoing serialization. Boom. In the forest, lightning roared. The rain poured down. On this stormy night, Yamanaka, Inoichi, Nono Yakushi, and Hyugaruri were sleeping soundly. Outside the barrier, including Kurisuke Raiga, the 30 Kirigakure ninjas also entered a light sleep. Some things were quietly happening, unknown to anyone. Darkness raged in the room where Ringo Aomuri was. 34. Section 34. Her twin rabbit ear-like buns were tugged, her head shaking violently. She struggled in agony, but it was utterly useless. She was suffocating. For a long time, the thunderstorm dissipated and dawn arrived. As the last trace of darkness was about to fade, the rampage reached its end. The final downpour fell, and then the thunderstorm completely stopped, and the dark shadow also quietly receded. Cough, 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 cough. Ringo Yuri coughed violently. Only when the dark shadow completely disappeared from the room and the outside light shone and did she barely stop coughing. Huff, she exhaled a long breath, looking at the bright ceiling. Ringo Yuri lay on the bed, her thoughts drifting away. The sky outside was already completely bright. Last night, she slept very deeply. Medical ninjutsu is an extremely chakra-consuming activity. Therefore, fatigue leading to deep sleep is understandable. However, being able to sleep so deeply even when surrounded by enemies must be related to young Master Sarutobi Ryo. Just seeing his confident face makes you feel like he can do anything. It's really reassuring. After washing up, Nono Yuri went into Ringo Yuri's room. Good morning, everyone. Everyone gathered and started a new day. You didn't sleep well last night? After checking Ringo Yuri's condition, Nono Yuri felt strange. Ringo Yuri rolled her eyes. Of course, Nono Yuri didn't know what had happened last night. She used medical ninjutsu chakra to examine Ringo Yuri's body, and the conclusion she reached was the same as yesterday. Ringo Yuri, from the land of water, critical condition turning stable, height 1.43 meters, sub-healthy. After probing for a moment, Nono Yuri got up and brought a water bottle for Ringo Yuri. I don't want to drink. Ringo Yuri, as a patient, hummed weakly. Anyway, I'm not thirsty or hungry. Nono Yuri didn't think much of it and continued with another round of treatment. Sarutobi Ryo stared at the two of them, focusing his gaze on Ringo Yuri. In front of his right eye's retina, the system prompt appeared prominently. Inject the will of fire into Ringo Yuri. Current progress 30%. In the next 2 days, the group continued as planned. Ringo Yuri's physical condition rapidly improved, fully demonstrating Nono Yuri's superb medical ninjutsu. After all, Yakushi Kabuto in the original story also had very powerful medical ninjutsu, and he was taught by Nono Yuri. Even looking at the entire Konoha, Nono Yuri's medical ninjutsu is extremely powerful. Only Princess Tsunade and a very few others have medical attainments that exceed her, and with enough wild food and soldier pills, Sarutobi Ryo's cultivation was advancing by leaps and bounds. He spent a week before to fuse steel release. Now, it could be considered officially taking off. He only needs to constantly hone the proficiency of the steel release Kekkei Genkai. In terms of taijutsu, Sarutobi Ryo's main body has not fallen behind either. Physical strength cannot be trained using the Shadow Clone cheat, but even so, Sarutobi Ryo, relying solely on his firm willpower, continuously and constantly tempered himself. Relying on perseverance and long-term cultivation, he was able to continuously improve. It is very difficult for a normal ninja to persist in such diligent cultivation. In the entire Naruto work, only Might Guy, and Rock Lee have this kind of tenacious taijutsu cultivation attitude. And Sarutobi Ryo has one more advantage than the three of them. That is the system, because as long as the right eye observes his body, that kind of continuous, visibly increasing and increasingly hot thermographic performance, Sarutobi Ryo can always persevere. This kind of positive feedback where effort is visible and effort is rewarded is the best motivation. If a person could accurately see their progress and even quantify it accurately, then who wouldn't be able to persevere? As time passed, Sarutobi Ryo's strength became stronger and stronger. In Hyuga Ruri's Bikugen, the chakra intensity on Sarutobi Ryo's body became higher and higher, and the membrane on the surface of his skin also became thicker and thicker. Bang! Sarutobi Ryo threw a punch. A faint white aura appeared on the fist. In Sarutobi Ryo's eyes, everything seemed to become slow motion. The posture, speed, and every detail of the punch. Even the dew dripping from the tree trunk above his head was so clear and distinguishable. It was as if the camera lens had pressed the slow motion button. Boom! The thick tree in front of him was hit by this punch, and the trunk exploded in response. A huge pit appeared, and countless cracks spread out. At this moment, Sarutobi Ryo had a flash of inspiration. Concentrating all his attention under observation, he naturally activated a new function of his right eye. A waterfall-like stream of data flowed past the front of his right eye's retina. Finally, Will of Fire System, new function, loading dynamic vision module activated. Maintaining the punching posture, Sarutobi Ryo froze for a few seconds. Of course, this wasn't spacing out, but rather, his attention was focused on the new function. Dynamic vision, also known as reaction speed, is a basic indicator of a ninja. A simple example can illustrate the importance of dynamic vision. Before Kakashi had the Sharingan, when using Chidori and sprinting quickly, he could neither see his own attack clearly nor see the enemy's counterattack clearly. So in the original story, Minato Namikaze told Kakashi not to use this ninjutsu anymore, because he would definitely die. It wasn't until Kakashi possessed Obito's Sharingan that the Chidori technique was perfected. The reason is that Kakashi did not have the dynamic vision of the Sharingan or Byakugan, and the demand for dynamic vision/reaction speed for Flying Thunder God is several times, even dozens of times, higher than Chidori. Minato Namikaze could even avoid the extreme speed of the fourth Reikage, A, on his own. From this, it can be seen that Minato Namikaze's talent is much stronger than Kakashi's. Therefore, the importance of dynamic vision/reaction speed is self-evident. Sarutobi Ryo retracted his fist and looked around. The Kirigakure ninjas outside the barrier immediately became nervous. After all, the power of that punch just now was too frightening. Sarutobi Ryo withdrew his gaze. With just a glance, he understood that his dynamic vision had increased several times. It's about time to go out chapter 40. Breakout? No, massacre. So, Sarutobi Ryo walked back and looked at the group who were ready to go. Ringo Yuri had recovered a lot after 3 days of treatment. Her complexion was a little pale, but she was completely out of danger, turning from critical condition to weakness after a serious illness. Let me explain first. I don't have my lightning blades, and I'm just recovering from a serious illness. Ringo Yuri spread her hands, indicating that her combat power was not sufficient. So don't count on her. Just squat back and release some ninjutsu. Sarutobi Ryo assigned her a position. In addition, Sarutobi Ryo was not unprepared. Ringo Yuri had insurance placed on her. It was a small-sized explosive tag. This kind of explosive tag is only the size of card. The advantage is that it can be manufactured by oneself and is inexpensive. The disadvantage is that the explosive power and range are small. 35. Section 35. This was a tactic Sarutobi inherited from his father, Hiruzen Sarutobi. In the original story, during the Chunin exams, Hiruzen Sarutobi used these explosive tags against the resurrected first and second Hokages, blowing off one leg of each on the spot. As long as she dared to betray him, he would guide his chakra to activate the small explosive tags attached to her clothing, causing them to explode. Although it wouldn't completely obliterate her, it could certainly turn her into multiple pieces of flesh, ensuring a gruesome and unrecognizable death. All right, it's time to begin. Sarutobi turned to face the forest. The air in the forest after the rain was exceptionally fresh, and in thermal imaging mode, the figures of every Kirigakure ninja were unable to escape detection. Ahui, Ruri, Nanoyu, Ringoya Yuri. The four of you will break through in the weakest direction. The four girls' battle plan was to use the forest as cover, retreating while fighting, trying to defeat the enemies one by one. As for me, and when facing comrades, words of concern are never considered excessive. This was also the difference between Konoha and Kirigakure. The true will of fire never treats comrades as stepping stones. After 3 days, the effectiveness of the barrier had also weakened considerably. The bloodthirsty gazes of the Kirigakure ninjas around them foreshadowed the imminent start of the battle. Release. When Sarutobi raised his right hand, formed a hand seal, and dispersed the barrier, he charged out like a fierce tiger. Only the sound of rushing wind and a series of bone fractures could be heard, and then a corpse flew out. This also heralded the start of the battle. Exclamations and angry roars rang out in unison. After taking down one person with a single blow, Sarutobi's right eye rotated. Relying on the newly added dynamic vision function of his right eye, he could clearly see the movements of every enemy within a wide range of his field of vision. 3 days of training. Sarutobi's taijutsu and steel release had risen to another level. In addition, the power of a Kekkei Genkai lies in the fact that one's strength can improve by leaps and bounds. A bloodline that subtly changes DNA is one of the greatest cheat-like weapons in this world. Relying on his own abilities to fuse and create a Kekkei Genkai. This also foreshadowed that Sarutobi would advance from an ordinary ninja towards the direction of superhuman. Crack, casually twisting off one person's head and kicking another person's neck until it snapped. The enemies in front of him, whose strength was at the Chunin level, were no match for Sarutobi at all, and it looked as easy as dealing with toys. On Yamanaka Huey's side, the four of them gathered as a group, breaking through towards the weakest point. Yamanaka Hui and Haigaruri were both Chunin. Nanoyu was responsible for covering Yuri's retreat. Their breakthrough did not encounter too much resistance. By the time the Kirigakure ninjas realized this and wanted to move more manpower over, a rising stone wall blocked their path. Earth release. Earth Mausoleum return. Sarutobi slammed one hand on the ground. A huge stone slab rose with a rumble. Earth release counters water release. Most of the Kirigakure ninjas were water attribute. Therefore, this sudden obstruction directly produced results. It also cut off the two sides. Looking at the stone wall behind her, Nanoyu couldn't help but become more worried. Can Risama really stop so many people? Just as she was thinking this, Yamanaka Hui had already stopped moving, knelt on one knee, and prepared a hand seal. The moment several enemies rounded the stone wall and appeared, her seal was already complete. Mind confusion technique. Multiple mind confusions simultaneously controlled several enemies. Before they could react, they began attacking their companions. A scene of mutual slaughter was staged in the forest. At this time, Yamanaka Hui said, "That's why we need to formulate a counterkill plan. Now is the time." Ringoya Yuri remained non-committal. Having just recovered from serious illness, she slowly formed a hand seal. It was a lightning release seal. Lightning release counters earth release and also counters water release. After all, water conducts electricity. Thus, a flash of electricity flashed in the air, and a large-scale electric net swept out along the ground. How fast is the speed of electricity? Probably the fastest type among the 5 basic attributes. Lightning release. Ground run. The large-scale electric net instantly hit multiple enemies. After releasing this ninjutsu, Ringoya Yuri's face paled slightly. What does it feel like to deal with former colleagues? It doesn't feel like anything. After all, the moral code in Kirigakure is like this. The next second, Haiga Ruri rushed out, her petite figure blossoming in the forest, and with her amazing, gentle fist taijutsu, she quickly finished off the remaining enemies. Maybe it really is possible, Nanoya murmured. Their side was equivalent to having forged nin. Although Ringoya Yuri had just recovered from a serious illness, and the other 3 had only recently been promoted. But if they relied on strategy and the right timing, solving 30 chnin didn't seem to be a problem. And just at this moment, a thunderclap suddenly sounded in the forest. Rumble. The sun after the rain suddenly disappeared. Even though it was just the morning sun, at this moment, dark clouds began to gather. Is it going to rain again? Yamanaka Hui looked up, but she quickly discovered the problem. No, there's a lot of chakra in these clouds. It was that guy named Kurisuki Raiga. Rumble. Another thunderclap. A pale lightning bolt lit up in the sky. It was a bolt of lightning that could almost split the sky, winding and falling from the high altitude. The speed of lightning is only 1,000th of a second. Therefore, unless one possesses special observation methods, such as the 3-tomo Sharingan or Byakugan, it is impossible to avoid it. And just after the lightning struck, the earthen wall exploded. Flying debris splattered everywhere. Then, the figure of Kurisuki Raiga, with his twin swords pointing towards the sky, was revealed, and Sarutobi still standing proudly on the spot. Chapter 41. Left-hand seal body flicker. Kurisuki Raiga's smile froze on his face. Just now, the technique was dodged? No. How is that possible? He had clearly aimed. Oh! Ringoya narrowed her eyes in the distance, and then she saw the trick. A little amazing, as the former user of the lightning blade Kiba, and also hailed as the strongest of all time. Ringoya Yuri was obviously clearer than anyone else about the characteristics of this sword. The speed of the lightning blade lightning strike is indeed only 1,000th of a second, but there's a condition for using this trick. Wherever the gaze reaches is where it strikes. In other words, as long as the line of sight fails to completely lock onto the enemy, there will be a possibility of missing. But this requires the enemy to possess very agile skills, or dynamic vision that surpasses the lightning blade user. That second Hokage's young master. Is his dynamic vision even better than Kurisuki Raiga's? Ringoya Yuri was worthy of the title of Genius Girl. With just one encounter, she analyzed the essence of the duel just now. It's not a real lightning strike. Sarutobi looked at the broken pieces of earth at his feet. Having witnessed this trick twice, Sarutobi felt more confident. If it was a real lightning strike, being hit would mean certain death. But obviously, the lightning blade lightning strike fired a lightning release condensed from chakra. Before the killing power reaches Kakashi's S-rank lightning blade, it does not possess absolute killing power. This trick can instantly kill Chunin, but it cannot instantly kill Chunin. 36, Section 36 the last time, when Byakuren got hit in the mountains, he only suffered minor injuries, which already explained everything. Amazing, the third Hokage's son, Sarutobi Ryo. After a brief moment of doubt, Kurisuki Raiga calmed down. Which Jonin hasn't clawed their way up from a mountain of corpses? The hoarse voice, accompanied by a low laugh, formed a deranged expression. He's got some skills, and he even managed to buy off Ringo Aim Yuri. What kind of existence is the Seven Ninja Swordsman of the Mist? The importance of this title in the Village of the Bloody Mist is no less than that of the Sannin in Konoha. It is a symbol of glory and also of many things. If someone among the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist is bought off by the enemy, it would be a huge blow to morale. In the original story, the Mist chose to withdraw their troops after Might Due defeated the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. Faced with Kuratsuchi Raiga's misunderstanding, Sarutobi Ryo was somewhat interested in explaining. "You seem to be mistaken about one thing. I just couldn't stand the practice of harming loyal people, so I took action." The boring comrade talk? As expected of a Konoha ninja, Kuratsuchi Raiga remained non-committal. And because they were relatively far apart, Nanoyu and the others didn't hear their conversation clearly. The talk ends here. "Since we're ninjas, let's decide the outcome in a ninja way," Kuratsuchi Raiga shouted in a low voice, and as his voice fell, Sarutobi Ryo also instantly took action. Ha! After a violent shout, he stomped down with force while simultaneously forming a hand seal with his left hand. The entire ground seemed to tremble under this stomp. Then, a terrifying killing intent came before him. A seemingly simple rush contained various techniques. Having learned from Konoha's White Fang, Sarutobi Ryo didn't just learn swordsmanship. Konoha's White Fang's swift movements, the left-hand seal body flicker technique, were also things that Sarutobi Ryo had learned. The body flicker technique only requires one seal. Usually, it's the right hand that forms the seal, and the body flicker technique is divided into ordinary body flicker, water body flicker, lightning body flicker, and other body flickers. When practiced to the extreme, it can even be performed without a seal. In Sarutobi Ryo's knowledge, in the entire ninja world, there are probably only a few people who possess the ability to use body flicker without seals. One of them is Hitaki Sakumo. At this time, Sarutobi Ryo's strength is certainly not comparable to Hitaki Sakumo, but learning only a part is enough to benefit him for life. At the same time as the left-hand seal is activated, the freed-up right hand can launch an attack at the same time. Thus, Sarutobi Ryo transformed into an afterimage and almost instantly arrived in front of Kuratsuchi Raiga. If it were an ordinary jonin, they would have been instantly killed by Sarutobi Ryo. But Kuratsuchi Raiga's main attribute is lightning. All lightning release ninjas have very agile reaction speeds, unless this lightning release ninja has a natural dynamic visual acuity defect, like Kakashi. If the dynamic visual acuity condition is met, then he will definitely be able to react quickly. Thus, amidst the bloody aura assaulting his face, Kuratsuchi Raiga, with every hair on his body standing on end, subconsciously slashed out with the twin swords in his hand. Another characteristic of the lightning attribute, sharpness. This is vividly displayed on these lightning swords. With one slash, it can be said that cutting through an earth wall is as easy as playing around. If lightning release is attached, then even metal can be easily cut through. Crackle. White electric light flickered, different from the blue lightning release used by Ringo Aim Yuri. Although both are lightning attributes, Kuratsuchi Raiga's chakra nature has subtle differences. But just as the twin swords were about to slash down, Sarutobi Ryo's body flashed violently, already crossing to the side. Then he stomped hard with his right foot, and his body flickered again, almost circling behind Kuratsuchi Raiga. So fast, Kuratsuchi Raiga's pupils shrank sharply, astonished by Sarutobi Ryo's speed. Because Sarutobi Ryo's speed looked like he was shrinking the ground into inches. The body flicker technique is a ninjutsu. It doesn't require physical strength to participate. In the original story, Gaara used the movement method of the chakra body flicker technique to replace physical movement because the sand in the gourd on his back was too heavy. And Sarutobi Ryo, at this moment, not only used the left-handed body flicker taught by Hitaki Sakumo, but also on this basis added a method of physical strength burst. Stepping on the ground generates a reaction force, and then using ninjutsu to propel his body. The combination of the two will make the speed even faster. Bang! Another move. Kuratsuchi Raiga turned around and slashed horizontally. At the same time, his eyes looked at the place where Sarutobi Ryo had stepped. The crater where the ground exploded was very conspicuous. I see. He understood. The power generated by super strong taijutsu combined with the body flicker technique. It really is amazing. However, wanting to come up and kill me right away is too much to think. Kuratsuchi Raiga smiled coldly, twin swords crossing. Nimp, lightning armor. Boom! White lightning surged, and the chakra emanating from Kuratsuchi Raiga's body was transmitted through the lightning swords and returned to his body. This move, lightning armor, is his original move. Even Ringo Aomuri doesn't have it. This guy, watching his own ninja swords being used by others, and combined with techniques to create new uses, Ringo Aomuri's expression suddenly became strange. Chapter 42. Kill completely wrapping lightning around himself, thereby gaining increased attack, defense, and reaction speed. Haha! Kuratsuchi Raiga laughed. Having suddenly increased his abilities, he gradually began to keep up with Sarutobi Ryo's movements. However, he didn't know that he was just beginning. He saw Sarutobi Ryo raise his right palm and slap it over fiercely. With a loud bang, the palm slapped out from the air was accompanied by an explosive surge of air. In Kuratsuchi Raiga's eyes, the power of this crushing palm was like the sky falling and the earth splitting, the cold power wrapped in monstrous killing intent, sweeping over together. Kuratsuchi Raiga never expected that Sarutobi Ryo was hiding a remote taijutsu attack. At this moment, he even mistakenly thought that this was the 8 trigrams vacuum palm of the Hyuga clan. However, the 8 trigrams vacuum palm of the Hyuga clan is definitely not as powerful as this. Only when it reaches the level of 8 trigrams, Mountain Crusher, will it have such power. After one palm, Sarutobi Ryo's arm was numb from the lightning, and Kuratsuchi Raiga was sent flying, and the lightning armor wrapped around his body flickered a few times and actually collapsed. Kuratsuchi Raiga's feet plowed 2 tracks on the ground. He barely stopped his figure, his eyes becoming more and more astonished. In a flash of lightning, the two had already exchanged several moves. The surrounding mist ninja were dumbfounded because the battle was too explosive. They hadn't even reacted at all. It wasn't until Sarutobi Ryo's right hand trembled slightly that they thought about whether they should go forward to help Kuratsuchi Raiga. Wait. At this time, a thought arose in everyone's mind. If Kuratsuchi Raiga is killed, negative desires began to grow. The tradition of infighting in the bloody mist caused the surrounding 20-odd mist ninja to stop. They, like bloodthirsty sharks after devouring Ringo Aomuri, were even waiting to continue devouring Kuratsuchi Raiga. On Sarutobi Ryo's side, he clenched his fist. 37. Section 37, that palm, just now almost landed directly on the lightning armor. The close proximity would inevitably conduct some electricity. However, to maximize the destructive power of the crushing palm, this was the best choice. Not bad. With the steel release stance flowing over his body, it almost completely negated the side effects of close-range lightning release. Therefore, strike him while he's down. Without much hesitation, Sarutobi Ryo once again used the body flicker technique, rushing in front of Kuratsuchi Raiga. He was clearly going to beat him into oblivion. With a palm strike, the wind howled, causing Kuratsuchi Raiga's clothes to flutter. He didn't have time to think, and with a swing of his twin swords, he chose to exchange injury for injury. Boom! The lightning generated from the lightning blade struck.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.